me and Ryan have been officially welcomed to the jungle that is Barstool Sports.
Our white whale, Sidney Crosby.
Shave his head! Shave his head! Shave his head!
Ryan Whitney, Paul Bissonette, R.A., Mike Grinelli, Spittin Chiclets!
How are you, folks? What is going on? And welcome back to episode 543 of the Spittin Chiclets podcast, presented to you by Pink Whitney. And oh my God, did we have a Pink Whitney-filled week last week in Orlando with Bob Does Sports. Yes, Keith, that was us for 2 straight days of 2 straight 3-on-3 Sandbagger special scrambles, an absolute time and a half. And the Pink Whitney was flowing. Birdies galore, Eagles galore possibly, and just Pink Whitney down the hatch. After the round, before the round, it was all over Orlando. It's all over everywhere. Hopefully it gets back to Canada. These ridiculous tariffs. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but I digress. What the hell, Trumpet? But we got Pink Whitney. We got love for Pink Whitney. We got the absolute best flavored vodka in the game. So go grab yours today at a liquor store, at a local bar. Do a shot, mix a drink, however you like it. However you like it. But thank you so much for your support. Biz, Keith. What's going on, boys?
I would probably say one of our funnest collabs we've ever done with the Bob Does Sports guys. That was so fucking fun. I mean, I wasn't even drinking the Pink Whitney shooters, and you guys were. You dumbered, what was it, 113 of them in 2 rounds?
I was told 123, and then I was told 113. Either way, 5 guys, 36 holes. I mean, I used to be a math guy.
I'm no rocket Scientologist, but that's a lot of Pink Whitney.
That was ridiculous. Not to mention that they have their drinks, the have-a-days, very tasty. It was an unreal couple days with these guys, though. Like, their comedy, we mentioned, like, they're kind of like one of the kings of YouTube golf. We've talked about YouTube golf and PGA Tour golf and how so many fans now, I think, enjoy watching YouTube golfers. So we wanted to get in the mix, and lucky for us, we were kind of, I think Bob said one of the most wanted collabs he's ever had. So to get to both sides really want to get together for a 3-on-3 and to get Keith involved with the Sandbaggers, it was just a classic 2 days. I think that the first video is going to be for their channel. They mentioned about 2 weeks, and then the rematch, whatever happens on each side, will be our channel. And we want to thank DraftKings too, because they put it together. It was all because of them to get us together, get us down to Orlando. Beautiful golf course.
Oh, the best. The best. I might get a membership.
Beautiful. They might move the Masters there. I guess
what
there's
was it,
rumblings.
the Colonial National?
Claremont National.
Claremont, close enough.
So I really hope everyone enjoys that. I actually think that a lot of the people who've watched our Sandbaggers are probably into Bob Does, but I'm hoping they have a bunch of fans that maybe don't know about us. We can get some crossover, and it should be great for us. So, Keith, what'd you think? You kind of knew those guys better than Biz and I did.
Yeah, I'll just throw this at you. Did you enjoy? I enjoy the scramble element. I find it's a lot less pressure, especially me as a non-golfer like you, Whit. Like most of the shots you're striping, but I really love the 3-man scramble. Like that to me was the best. You could worry about the chirps, having fun, and not as much pressure on each guy individually.
Yeah, 100%. And then when you got Witt as you're racing the whole Mariano Rivera closing out hole, it was just, I thought it was amazing. I've been a huge fan of those guys for a long time. And I think to do my first one with you guys, with them was, honestly, it was like a dream come true for something like that for me. So it was amazing. 3 great personalities on their side. I thought, they were almost kind of like playing with some hockey guys. We were just giving it to each other back and forth. From what I remember, I don't remember too much from any of the golf rounds. I'm excited to see it, but also have lost a little bit of sleep over it, knowing what the hell we said on that golf course.
Hey, Pasha, save us in the editing, buddy.
No, I was texting Bob Does. I'm like, hey, you guys know what to cut out and stuff, right? He's like, yeah, we got you. I got back from the first day. And we went upstairs and we were just like showering and getting dressed before we were going to meet for dinner. And I FaceTimed Bree and I was shaving and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm crippled right now. Like, this is not good." She's like, "Sweet job you have." Great job. I'm here at home. I got a stomach ache. The one kid's screaming, crying. The other two are wrestling in the other room. So I was just like, I'm sorry, business calls, sweetie, business calls. But it was just great. And then like to be in Orlando too, we were at this hotel, the Conrad.
Beautiful.
I got to say one of the nicest places we've
Shout
ever
out to
been.
Grinnell. He booked it for us because I had us in like an AHL East Coast Hockey League hotel in Fort Lauderdale. I don't think Whit was too happy. And then G booked it, but it was actually Jans who told him to book the Conrad. So my apologies. Sorry about that, Whit.
G texted me. He goes, "Hey, from what I've heard about this hotel that I got to put Whit up at for a couple nights in Fort Lauderdale, you got a better place that we can stay in Orlando." I'm like, "Yeah, I just stayed at this Conrad with the fam a couple months ago. It's amazing." So we walked in. It was beautiful. We had a good time.
Hey, so I got to Logan on Friday to fly to Fort Lauderdale. It was one of those ones, I'll never get this. They get you on the plane, and then they announce, "Hey, we're not going anywhere for close to 2, maybe 3 hours." It's like,
What?
But the pilot said, like, "I just wanted to get you on the plane so whenever this is fixed, like something with the brakes, I guess those matter when you're landing." He's like, we want you on the plane so right when it's fixed, we can take off. I'm like, I don't know, man. I think everyone would kind of rather chill in the terminal. Terminal beer, top 3 beer in the world. And then I fly down, so it's a huge delay. And then it took an hour and 45 minutes to get the bags out, which was crazy. I don't know what was going on in the airport. So I didn't get to the hotel till late.
Tariffs.
And I pulled into that Residence Inn, and I'm like, this motherfucker.
Residence
is.
Inn.
I was like, hey, it was just like trying to check in. I'm like ringing the bell for the guy. I'm like, God damn, where are we staying in Orlando? Is what I thought of right away. But it was a great trip. I had a blast.
That's why I had to do my prison workut outside.
Yeah, this is working.
Which fucked up my back. And thank God that you guys came through. Kristen and then a few of Jans' buddies brought me a few muscle relaxers. If it wasn't for those muscle relaxers, it would have been 3 versus 2.
I've
And
actually
you
never
also
seen a recovery like you had. Like
But
you
I
couldn't.
was
You were
yeah.
crippled.
I was crippled and I was stretching my hip flexors out like 35 minutes before the round and somehow I was able to manage through it. You said Jans was like playing with
4-hour train ride. He stretched his hammies for 3.5 hours.
And every
On
time,
the train.
so we had the computer up with the Eagles Commanders game on, and then he's like, "Hey, can I watch the game?" And I just like turned a little, and then after 2 minutes, he wouldn't be watching if he stretched it, so I turn it back. I think 7 times. Like, can I watch the game? Here you go. Turn it right back.
Jans, you mentioned it was like playing with a couple hockey guys. So Joey Colcuts, who's a member of the Bob Does Sports, he actually played hockey and he lost all of his front jibs. So he technically is. And going over to the hockey player element, I mean, obviously Fat Perez never played hockey. I would imagine he didn't. But this guy is a fucking machine. And for those of you who don't know, this is like the modern day, in my opinion, the modern day John Daly golfer. Is describing as a John Daly not the perfect description?
He's a cartoon.
Daly. He's got the smoothest goddamn golf swing I've ever seen in my life, too. By the way, I need to apologize. I get ahead of this one when the video comes out. A lot of Pink Whitney. I was calling Joey Colcuts Joey Chestnut 2 straight days. Chestnut! And at one point, I guess, I think Ticket or Jet was like, one of them said, "Do they know our names?" Like, yeah, I know your name. It was just, I don't know why Joey Chestnut and the hot dog eating and him being on Keith's dozen team. Like, I was just messing up the Colcut and Chestnut, but great dudes. And I think people are going to love these videos. I really do. They were a blast to film.
And then to cap it all off, guys, we got to go to the Orlando Solar Bears game. Probably the last Pink Whitney event we'll do there. Maybe not sure. Maybe there'll be like a collab with the Greensboro team. But now that we're affiliated to another team, it'd be weird if we're doing business with the Orlando Solar Bears. But for the 3 times that we've done it, they've been first class. They end up pulling off the victory. So they're 2-0-1 in the 3 games that we've done. And one of the guys was bitching because we didn't have money on the board, the captain. And I was like, I don't know, man. It seems like tampering to me. I'm going to be putting more money up for Greensboro. I'm not going to be doing it for Orlando anymore.
And we've been at the golf course all day. Like, I'm lucky we Keith and I got to the arena, let alone put money on the board. Also, I don't think I ever played hockey at this point. Like, I'm missing the net on these center ice shots. I'm not even hitting the board. Forget getting it in the little puck-size hole. I'm missing the net completely. I'm getting different curves. It's just pathetic. We all stunk this time. Biz, I think you missed the net. Keith, you hit the net. But ugly showing for us. The fans were booing us. I was kind of imagining it was because we own a different East Coast Hockey League team. But I don't know. I think it was just because they're like, who are these idiots at center ice? Oh, that's the Pink Whitney guy. That's why his face is pink. I guess these guys never played hockey. That's how I felt, at least.
Did you guys watch the Grammys?
I did.
Yeah, Keith was kind of texting our group at home about it. I just saw the social clips. The Grammys, man, I don't know. Like, the Beyonce gets the album of the year for that country album. Like, that's not, Keith, that's not correct, right? Should she be winning that?
Well, she came out with a country album, so yeah, I think being up for that is. I mean, obviously we know her as a R&B singer.
You think that was album of the year?
It's not her genre.
I'm not dialed into the country music. I know nothing about country music, but I don't know. I knew one of the songs that was on there. I know she had a ton of good collaborations on that CD, but yeah, album of the year. I can imagine that like the true like down dirty country fans are probably not happy about it just because, you know, Lainey Wilson, I know she's a big star. But even Post Malone, he's not a country singer. He was up for it. So it's like,
he dropped a country album.
I feel like his transition into country may be a little bit more natural than Beyonce's. Not exactly her original genre here. Very diplomatic.
He started as a rapper.
Yeah, with that one tune, but he kind of looks more like a country guy with all the tattoos and
always tired on his forehead.
Oh, little greasier, that's for sure. But very diplomatic of you, Keith, because you don't want the Swifties after you or the Beehive. Because if you badmouth Beyonce, you got the Beehive after you, they'll fucking slit your throat with a razor blade. Like, you don't fuck around. So congrats on album of the year. We can move on. Not Like Us took home a lot of hardware.
How about everybody singing it?
Everybody sang it, and they did I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like, you feel like the whole music industry's turned their back on Drake like that? Like, what? That's guy.
I don't know.
He must be
Kendrick
down in the dumps right now.
I know.
I would imagine he was in a different country and did not have the Grammys on. You knew that it was probably going to be not great, probably worse than expected, given everybody was singing along as Kendrick went up and he ended up cleaning house. So, I mean, were you a big Drake guy coming up, Jans? Like, did you like all the bangers that he was dropping?
I like Drake. I thought he was I'm more of like he's more a little more mainstream than I really like to listen to for rap. But yeah, I thought he obviously has some great tunes. Got to meet him one time at the Ottawa All-Star game, which was pretty cool. He signed my stick and it said OVO, but I thought it said XOX. And I was like, that's kind of weird.
Shit.
But it says OVO, which back then I didn't know what OVO stood for. But yeah, and I can't say I'm a huge fan.
You thought Drake was trying to get in your pants?
Yeah, I just didn't. I didn't get why he signed it XOX, but he didn't. It was OVO, October's very own.
A classy, elegant, beautiful look on Kanye's girl. Just yeah, like that
full
is
class.
What when you picture like I want to marry a woman that'll be an amazing mother, and like that's what you think of, right? Just going with your tits out, butt naked.
Like Bonnie.
Enough of Bonnie, enough. And
she followed me.
I don't care. I think of all
literally
the
don't
women you've had on your workbench. If you end up doing that one, like I might be out of this show. I really might be. And Grinelli mentioned Noah Kahan, who played at Fenway this summer. I didn't know much about him, and my dad had actually offered tickets to my wife and I was like, I'm all set. I don't know who he is. Turns out the guy's unbelievable. He's got this on Spotify, his Live from Fenway concert. I'm rocking this playlist constantly. I love the guy's music. He didn't even win one Grammy. I think that was a little shocking. This guy's nasty. I think he's from Vermont. The song Northern Attitude. This is like the opposite of Keith style music, but it's great. Great music.
He just posted a picture. He was in Minnesota and he was with Middleton. And Middleton had his tarp off, and I must have been after like post game in the crowd.
Oh, I saw that actually. I forgot about that. Yeah, Middleton's up in the stands with no shirt on.
No shirt, just
At the
tarps off.
concert?
No, after one of his games.
Well, considering they've been on the
He
slide
went
lately.
up to the thing to see like the friends and family.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's part of
What a
the
beauty.
ticket promotion because they've been struggling a little bit, so they're trying to sell out. So they said they're doing a meet and
Right.
greet with him, tarps off post game. So he ended up running into this musician that Witt's talking about. But his tunes are very upbeat, lively, positive. Like they make you move.
They make you feel good. So, G, you hopped on. What do you have?
Biz, you mentioned Bonnie Blue earlier, and
Yeah, I did.
from what I've been hearing is she's been hearing that you've been asking about her, and she left a little message for you.
Oh, interesting.
Hey Biz, it's Bonnie Blue, and I just want to wish you and all the boys in blue good luck for the rest of the season.
That's very classy of Bonnie. The boys in blue. She's on the Toronto Maple
Buddy,
Leaf train.
you know, when I think of class, I think of her. That is just like, so, you know, her and Kanye's girl. Anyone with a daughter, let's strive for that.
Yep.
If she was in Edmonton for Edmonton Leafs in the finals, would you escort her out the way that Kanye and his girl got escorted out of the Grammys? They kicked them out, by the way.
Kanye got
You
the boot?
think? She
They
didn't wear
got the boot. They
clothes.
showed up her vagina was staring at you in the face when she was on the red carpet. What do you? So they were uninvited, and then she wears this big jacket, and then she drops it, and then she has that. Well, I mean, I guess you could call it a dress, and then they're like, "Yeah, no, you got to go."
Did you see the one picture of like the little kid? He's like 10 years old and he's like looking around like the corner at her.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm if I'm 10, I'm probably like, oh my God. I mean, I remember at 10 I was, or maybe not 10, that's young, like say 12. Remember when like the channels wouldn't come in, but like they occasionally would come in from the snow, and then you're just like, oh shit, that's a tit. Like that's kind of, if you're seeing that at the Grammys, that's a little different than Skinamax barely coming in on your cable in whatever 1995. But I guess we've been all over the map here. We can go back to
But good
hockey.
to know that Bonnie's on the boys in blue train, and I'll leave it at that. It's just good to
They
know
might
that
not
we
win
have
another game this year.
Yeah.
No shit. I might have to have Wyatt quit the Leafs now that she's on that train.
Oh, really?
Literally, she could be on that train.
Literally.
The Biz Bonnie Blue collaboration, the one thing that'll bring down Spittin Chiclets.
Anything else happen other than hockey? Because, I mean, there's another big trade to announce. I mean, we still got to go back and dive a little bit into the Rottenen one because, like, some comments from him and his agent after it all ended up going down and shaking out, how surprised they were. But anything else that we need to cover from this past weekend? Did you have any Squanto stories to share? Anything crazy happening at the Whitney household? What about you, Jans?
Nothing really here. I think I made a mistake telling Squanto not to slash people in the head with his stick, because ever since he did and that clip like that went viral, like he's kind of just like pretty timid out there. I'm like, damn, I should have just let him keep doing it. I mean, he didn't injure anyone. Now he's skating around there like I was scared of my own shadow. So Ryder, I'll tell you right now. So Ryder plays on two teams. He's got a travel team and he's got the town team. The amount of hockey that this kid is playing, it's out of control, dude. Like, he's so hockeyed out right now, I can tell, because, and the biggest thing is that he has practice 2 days a week for the travel, 1 day a week for the town, and then on the weekend, you have like 2 travel games usually and 1 town game. This week, it was 2 and 2. It's like, no wonder he's, like, they don't have the excitement anymore of like, oh, like, I got hockey this day, right? And you're like looking forward to it. He's like, I'm trying to get answers out of him. He's, you know, and as anyone
He's looking for a per diem pack.
He's kind of just like, oh, after school I go to hockey. So, but they did go. They did win all 4 games this weekend. First time on the travel side that the Terriers, shout out this lid, have won both games on a weekend. So I was like, that was nice. The kids were all fired up. That was really cool. And then we won both the town games. But yeah, the amount of hockey, it's like, holy shit, this is out of control. Like, I get.
So why don't you just pull them from one of the teams? It sounds like a solution that you can.
Because I don't teach my
control.
kids to be quitters. You can't quit mid-season, Biz. Like, you can't just quit, you know? Like, next year, obviously, there's a discussion. Like, do you want to do both?
Well, okay, so time out. So he went to you and said, Dad,
No, he
I
hasn't
want to
said
play
anything.
for.
He hasn't said anything. So it's more just like I'm
asking about like before you even signed him up for both. Like it seems like he wouldn't be quitting. It would be you because you were the one that signed him up. Like, was he asking to be on 2 teams?
No, but like he's not even old enough to even like know. You kind of just like do both because you're with your buddies from town, and you wouldn't be on 2 teams. I think like starting at Squirt, that would be way too much. But might like the town team is your buddies from school, and it's not like there's no offsides, there's no icing. It's in like a smaller rink, and then the travel is like legit hockey rules. So he didn't really ask for both. No, he didn't. But I can't like you can't quit in the middle of the year. No matter what he ever does, like if he signs up for something, buddy, I don't care how much you don't like it. And he's never actually even said, I don't want to go. And every time like, hey, you got practice, he's like, okay, good. I could just tell by like the slowness.
He doesn't want to let you. Sounds like you're burnt out, not him.
I am a little burnt out right now. I guess it's a long season.
Just
like,
passing it on the rider.
You were a kid like waiting at the door for your dad to leave the house, weren't you? You were like my brother, like ready to
but
go
I
to
wasn't.
practice.
I never was on 2 teams.
You never
was
did the
on 2
situated.
teams. So it's like it's one or the other. But yeah, it's a little bit of overkill. Summer should be great. Getting away from it a bit. But I like, for example, I took him down yesterday. We hit some golf balls at Old Sandwich. Like in the winter, there's like 4 bays you can hit onto the range. It's great. And getting in the car and leaving, he's like, this is going to be so fun. And I was like, oh, this poor kid hasn't said that once about hockey. I'm just like, fuck, kind of hit me hard in like putting him in that much at this age. It's just a crazy, like I could go on for fucking 30 minutes about the whole
Witt's got him staying
thing.
at the Baza night before games. It's all in.
Taken away.
Like,
Yeah,
take your vitamins.
Yeah, exactly. Eat your
The
Wheaties,
Renaissance.
buddy. Residents in, the peasants in. But back to the NHL, where the men get paid and you got to do your job or things will change. Enormous week in the NHL.
Oh, yeah.
Vancouver Canucks involved, New York Rangers
Finally.
involved, Pittsburgh Penguins get in the mix. I'm wondering where you guys kind of want to start with this. Obviously, JT Miller, we've talked about this ad nauseum, nonstop, when it was going to happen. And at the beginning of all of this, I believe he came out, he's like, there's no rift. Yeah, and Biz doesn't love Bonnie Blue. Like, there was a rift. It was pretty obvious the entire time. And it finally came to a head when, like, all of a sudden, all these insiders who know everything was like, they're shopping Miller and they're shopping Pettersson. Like, they're shopping both of these guys. They had deals in place. They had possible deals. It was just crazy. But the Rangers wanted Miller. It was pretty evident, right? Chris Drury, this was his guy. I read an article that even going back to 2 years ago, before he signed the extension with Vancouver, Chris Drury's like, I want this guy on this team.
No shit, eh?
Yeah, and apparently... apparently that was there, and then he signed the deal, so everything changed. And then this year was just kind of a disaster in Vancouver from the get-go. And last year he had this 100-point season. He carried them against Nashville. He played pretty amazing against McDavid. Like Barkov obviously was number 1 against McDavid. After that, JT Miller did a good job of somewhat shutting him down in air quotations.
Well, I think that he went pointless in 3 of those 7 games, which was the most of any round throughout the course of all of playoffs. And I'll just start off by saying, like, we're in the entertainment business. Like, round of applause to the Vancouver Canucks, JT Miller, Pettersson, and creating all this conversation.
Clicks.
But hey, it makes our job a lot more entertaining. Like, we're speculating on trades, but at the end of the day, these are human beings. And like, I'm probably just as relieved as JT Miller at the fact that this is all over, for fuck's sakes. I felt that it even dragged out for an extra 2-3 weeks too long. So from like the entertainment and hockey side of it, and like all you hockey enthusiasts, like awesome. But from the human element, like, good for him to fucking go to a place where he's going to be happy. He's going to play with his childhood friend who he played with growing up in Trocheck. Obviously received very well in the fact that Drury had wanted him for years on end here, a place that he is familiar with and where he was drafted and where he's already now off to a hot start. 4 points in his first 2 games? His first game spoiled by the Bruins finally showing some offense, but they end up pulling off the victory against the Golden Knights. And Quickie gets his 400th win, which we'll get to. But as far as the return, the fact that they get the first rounder and then they switch it out for Pettersson from the defenseman for Pittsburgh, I feel like all in all a solid return. And Hedl was the question mark because a lot of people were like, okay, this guy's one big hit away from maybe being done. constantly on the IR, but has shown a lot of signs this year of growth, playing good hockey. And then now even he had that big goal the other night for Vancouver. So if he can, continue to be a solid piece and they get Pettersson, I'm happy enough with the return given the circumstances, but I just simply don't think that, at least right now in his career, that Pettersson is valuable come playoff time as JT Miller. I don't think he has that dog in him. Maybe now that the fact that this guy who he was having issues with is gone, he can go back to being the player that he thinks he can be and that the organization has paid him to be, because that's a lot of fucking money to make to be calling the shots. From my understanding, in some cases, not bringing the best work ethic day in, day out to practice. And then along with, being very hot and cold with his play. So as far as the return, if I'm Vancouver, I'm happy. And now you're away from this whole headache and situation, but be weary about Pettersson potentially not becoming the player that you guys hoped he once was, or what you once thought he could be when he put up the 100 points, and now all eyes on him. And I think that seeing a lot of the outpouring of support from Vancouver teammates for JT Miller on his departure might be a little bit of an unsettling feeling for fans and people maybe on the outside being like, what exactly was going in on the inside? Like where did the players lie on this issue? Not so much management and fans.
Yeah, and obviously this deal that, was talked about, 2 weeks ago, Millsy going to the Rangers, then kind of got shut down for a little bit. And that's when they started talking about, shopping both of the guys. And I don't, when I think about it, you got to think that they called around every team about Petey and probably weren't getting as much as they hoped to expect, and was like, okay, we got to go back to the well here and trade Millsy to New York, which I think is a great fit for him going back. And like you said, playing with Trocheck. But yeah, a lot of pressure on Peterson here. And it's going to show a lot about, the rest of his career, what he can do the rest of this year, and, putting that team on his back. And I think, like you said, Biz, the outpour of, guys' messages on Instagram, Twitter, and stuff like that, and even talk saying, he's what was his quote? I think he said he was a heart and soul guy. About Millsy, it's one of those things that Petey's got to be ready to go come puck drop every single night for the rest of the year, and then for the next 6-7 years, however many years he has left. But that's some big shoes to fill, and to do it by yourself when you don't have another 1A 1B it's going to be tough on him.
I said long before this deal went down that if Miller was traded, hey, buckle up, Pettersson, because now, buddy, you got your wish, and you're going to have to show up and play a lot better than you have been. I tweeted out last night, if I'm a Canucks fan, I'm furious. They traded the wrong guy. I understand the age difference. I also see the competitiveness and how one guy plays and then how the other guy plays, where like Biz said, it's hot and cold. Yeah, some nights Pettersson's, he's involved physically, he's engaged, and then other nights he's just floating around out there. And I think Canucks fans are lying if they don't agree with that. But hey, you got everything you wanted. He's gone, and let's see what you can do. I mean, Frank Saravelli reported that there were Canucks players in the room that were sad to see him go. Now we may never know, and obviously all of us have kind of heard different things that I would never share, what actually went down between those two. And if that's ever made public by one of those two guys, we can discuss it, but that's not our place at all. I just look I don't know about why Vancouver then dealt that first round pick that was included by the Rangers. So it's top, I think, is it 13G protected, top 13 pick protected this season, unprotected next year. My mind, that's a nice pick to have, because who knows what happens with the Rangers, right? If they don't make the playoffs this year, I don't know what happens next year. I don't see them blowing anything up. They just signed Shesterkin. They have Fox signed. They now have Miller signed long term. But that pick, I was surprised, because you get Marcus Pettersson, who's a UFA. You get Drew O'Connor. Now you kind of have to sign Marcus Pettersson. The amount of Petterssons on Vegas is out of control, by the way. I think there's 3 of them now, including another Elias Pettersson. But I think looking at Miller to the Rangers, that was a move that makes a lot of sense to me because this guy, like, he is driven now. He was there before. He loved it. You mentioned Biz. Him and Trocheck are legit best friends. Like, Trocheck's put out pictures. They're 9 years old, like, playing hockey together. That's one of the coolest things you could ever imagine, playing with a kid that when you were 9 and 10, you dreamed of being in the NHL. Now you're on the same team. So that's awesome right there. And the Rangers, like, they had to do that. They had to go out. Like, they're not in a time right now where they can't go try to get some help. I still think they could get in. I think
they can too.
I saw an article, 36% chance that they get into the playoffs. I bet Pasha $500 that they would get in. So we'll see what happens there. But Miller's looked phenomenal the first 2 games. They played like shit against the Bruins on Saturday. Bruins whooped them, but a huge win against Vegas on Sunday. Probably one of the hits of the year by Cooley on Pietrangelo. Just rocked him, and then Hegg came over and fought him, but the Garden was buzzing. They had a comeback, one in the third period, and I think that, like, looking at the Rangers, if Shesterkin all of a sudden does his thing and Miller brings what it looks like he might with energy and enthusiasm, and he threw an enormous hit on somebody in the corner too on Sunday, like, they could end up finding something here and getting in, especially considering Columbus now, they got some injury problems. My guy Marchenko's out with a broken jaw. Montreal, like, there's some younger teams that I feel like the Rangers with their veterans could end up overtaking for a wild card spot.
I wanted to ask you guys, because, you know, the life expectancy for a GM, like, if I'm the GM of Vancouver, I'm thinking 3 years. I'm not thinking 5 years, 6 years, and I would rather have JT Miller for the next 3 years.
So I agree with you, Jans, and that's why I'm like, fuck, man. If, like, they could have probably then dealt Pettersson for Natchez, and then imagine having JT Miller and Natchez as a 1-2 rather than Pettersson and like, I guess, would you consider Hedel their second line center right now?
Yeah, probably. And
Yeah.
I think he could be great, Biz. It's just the concussions are scary. Like, I think Hedel probably needed like a change of scenery, and he could be really good. But that like injury concerns, dude, that's petrifying when you're dealing a star player away and you're getting a guy who, like you said, it's like one hit. Like, how many concussions has this guy had? It's. I mean, he's missed a lot of hockey.
Yeah, I'd rather be able to have Natchez this year and next year at 6.5 if I'm Vancouver, and then if he does pan out, end up paying him probably what you ended up paying Pettersson anyway. So that to me was surprising. And then when they got off of JT for what they did, that they didn't end up pulling the trigger on letting Pettersson go for Natchez and giving in understanding what the return was for Colorado and that exchange. So I would imagine that the fact that deal that ended up going down was on the table for a few weeks was probably Vancouver trying to work out the Pettersson deal with Pittsburgh and making sure they could get that return to solidify their back end. Because another story ended up coming out about Zadorov basically getting what he asked for from Vancouver, but the difference in taxes was $3 million over the course of the contract, and that's why he didn't end up coming back to Vancouver. So I really liked the way how big and how well Vancouver's back end played last year in order to put them in, win the Pacific and, push Edmonton to 7 games. So that was one element of their game that was really struggling this year that they had to help out. So like I said, all in all, I guess happy with the return given the circumstances, but maybe a little surprised they didn't go the Natchez route given the information now.
Also, the people who like Pasha who aren't JT Miller fans or were dogging the Rangers picking him up, talking about basically that I think he's signed till he's 37 years old. Like, I don't really worry about that much. One, Drury's like, his job's like sort of on the line right now and in the next year 2 or 3. I mean, you can't really worry about that when you're looking at a team right now that has these like guys signed long term. You're trying to win now or next year. I still think JT Miller, based on how he plays when he's at the top of his game, like I'm not that worried. Like maybe the last 2 years of the deal.
Well,
but I still
the numbers just came out, projected cap and where it's supposed to go.
Exactly.
And in 3 years, if it's at 110 million, you're talking about below 8% of the cap for. And if he at that point he's a second line center, like he's still a dog. He's still a guy you want to go to playoffs and go to battle with. So the fact that it's jumping up that quick, I just don't think his contract is that big of an anchor, even if there is a drop off with the way that the cap is going up.
I actually think we should get into that right now because when this news dropped this week, I first saw it from Elliot's Twitter about the cap and what it'll be the next 3 seasons. I was like, holy shit. And then I find out it might even be higher. So his tweet said that next year it'll be $95.5 million. The following year, $104 million. And the year after that, 27-28, $113.5 million. And then he was saying on his podcast, it might actually be 97, 107, 117. So you see after this flat cap and after these stagnant years where it really hasn't gone anywhere, like that's how well the game's doing, which is so cool for us to be able to do this. And I think everyone listening is fans. You want to, now I guess there's a worry for some small market teams, like will people not spend up to the cap? Whereas right now, even if you're not to the very end of the cap, you're still competitive enough. Nobody's that far away from the top. You get up to 117, that might change a little bit. But one thing I saw from Justin Bourne on Twitter, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this, which is pretty cool. Like for so long, we've been talking about, and I'm kind of like paraphrasing all this. We've been talking about, instead of saying like, oh, and imagining how much a certain player could help a team, your favorite team or a team you root for, you're more immediately like, oh, but the dollars and cents and the money doesn't work and that. Whereas it should be like, oh, you could try to get this guy in the system and what he could do. And I think with the cap going up this much, it won't be as much of like numbers crunching and worrying about contracts and not being able to make a trade, because there's just more room now where you're going to be able to acquire guys. And with the cap stopping so many deals and so many trades over all these years, I think that's going to change a little bit.
I feel like hockey, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like hockey and hockey fans are the only group of fans that think that it's their money. Like it's, you talk about a trade in the NBA, like whatever, guys making $50 million. No one ever mentions like, well, that's a big cap hit for this guy. Like the owner's paying these guys. Obviously the fans are too, but it's one of those things where if they want to go out and spend these money and make these monster deals like the Rantanen deal and get like big guys getting traded, and I think it just adds so much to the league and you know, stuff for us to talk about, the clickbait boys. And I don't know, I just feel like the NHL, like every fan base thinks that is just always talking about the dollar and cents and you know what it's going to do to your cap and stuff like that. So hopefully jacking up this you know, the cap here is going to, you know, maybe make people stop talking about it and realize just root for your squad.
Yeah, well, it was just getting too jammed up, and it was cock blocking a lot of deals and a lot of situations. But so before these numbers came out, I would have been open to making it like a soft cap as opposed to a hard cap. But with the acceleration of where it's going, like I think that the league's in a great place, and a hard cap is fine. I do think that Canadian markets are really, really going to struggle moving forward, though, in order to compete. Right, like that's just not only with the dollar rate. Just outside of like Toronto and I guess like Edmonton, maybe Vancouver to a certain degree, because it's still a strong market. Montreal. And they don't have as much competition. I mean, outside of that, man, it's going to be tough for some of these, and even like a small market team like Carolina. And it kind of goes back to the Rantanen thing where like a lot of the Carolina fans were like getting angry at me, like, hey, this is my new boyfriend, like leave him alone. Where I was trying to figure out how I wanted it to work out in Colorado with him. But with the news of where the cap's going, like, I don't think Carolina's going to be able to afford to keep him. They ain't going to be able to front load a con. You're getting a 3-month rental, and you just gave away Natchez, who's at 6.5 for this year and next year. That's why, like I know
I think they're going to make a huge offer, like to try to keep him though.
This was clearly about money, was it not? Because if it wasn't about money, he'd be playing with the big three. Him. That's why I'm so shocked by this. And I know we're revisiting it, but like my whole argument about it being risky is being like, well, if it wasn't all about money, this guy was going to get to play with McKinnon and Makar. He was going to make $100,000 less than McKinnon. You'd sign for 12.5. And I'm sure that with where the cap's going and everything, they would have figured out a way to front load it and make it very juicy on the front end and appealing. Well, by the sounds of where the cap's going, I'm sure he's probably looking at the 14 million range right now. You think Carolina's, you don't think a team like New York or a big market team, like let's say Toronto doesn't end up landing Marner, you don't think they're going to offer the fucking moon and signing bonus over what Carolina can afford to do?
Yep.
That's why I think it was ridiculous. Like, hey, if he wants his money, but then the news afterward and why we're revisiting it was him and his agent were like surprised how all this went down. Am I crazy to think that a guy who has the leverage and who he is and what he means to the Colorado organization couldn't have walked in there and made it work himself? The fuck does he need an agent for? Jans and Whit, let me ask you this. If you were Mikko Rantanen and you already won Stanley Cup and you have as much chemistry as you do with Nathan MacKinnon and you know that your contract's up, would you not have went out to dinner with MacKinnon multiple times and had this conversation about making it work? Would you not have yourself walked into Sakic and I forget the name of their GM now. I know that I think
McFarland.
Would you not have walked in yourself and had a conversation about trying to make that work if it wasn't about the money?
And from everything I've heard about that Chris McFarland is that he's like a very, personable guy around the guys. And yeah, it does shock me that they didn't have those conversations, especially a guy of his stature. But I don't know, maybe at the end of the day, they wanted to get rid of him. It was maybe, their time was up.
That's another thing and trying to get deeper. But Biz, I think that you underestimate how much guys really, really trust and lean on their agent and totally just want to play the game and kind of you tell me what to do, you tell me where to go, you tell me what to say or what I should ask for. Hey, buddy, like you're making that face at me, but like I don't think everyone's like you. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong where it's like I can go and I can figure this out myself. And like the superstars truly could. They don't really need agents. Like there are some players in the league that like Mikko Rantanen who could go in to McFarland and say, hey, what are you thinking? Like this would be fair to me. This would be fair to you. But there's also guys who want nothing to do with that. They don't. Like they just want to just play and I trust you enough to tell me what to do.
Okay, so then let's say you're doing that as a player. Let's say you're in Rantanen's situation and you're blown away and flabbergasted at the fact that like, oh my God, I'm packing up my bags. Like, I thought we were going to be making another cup run with this guy that I've put up 100-point seasons with. Do you think that's a failure from the agent for it to get to that place where you're now shocked as a client? That's where I'm like I'm not saying once the season starts and he's focusing on hockey that's where his mind should have been, but I feel like there should have been sit downs and conversations about this between Rantanen and management at some point. Like no,
yeah,
like
no,
I'll say this. In control.
I'll say this that if Rantanen had told his agent, hey, I'd love to be back here. I'd love to be back here. Keep me up to date with the discussions with McFarland, all that. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're dealt and it just hits you like a ton of bricks and you didn't see it coming. That is a failure in my eyes by the agent because you got to let the guy know, hey, listen, if you're putting me in charge here, like you could get traded. Now, I don't know if that was told to him or not, but if he's as shocked as everyone seems to think he was, you would think that there was some lack of communication between the two.
Agreed. And I guess where maybe like my message that was lost about the risk element, even if he is 85% of what he was playing with Nathan MacKinnon in Colorado as he moves over from a point perspective and just overall play, I still think that in free agency, he's probably going to get that $13.5 to $14 million.
Oh, now I just don't with these numbers? Fuck yeah.
Agreed. So now with that information coming out, maybe not as much risk, but to me, when you weigh the fact that and you got to remember where he ends up and from a state tax element. I know we always bring up the state tax, but I honestly thought that it would have been easy for Rantanen to get to a place where he was making $100,000 less than Nathan MacKinnon. I don't think that they would have moved on from him if that was the number, because I think that would have been a slight team-friendly deal. And over the course of that 8 years, and mind you, if he doesn't sign in Carolina, that is my hot take. I don't think that he's going to sign in Carolina. I think there's not a chicken dick's chance that he's going to sign in Carolina. So you go back to the last 2 years and the assets they've given up for a rental in Gensel and Rantanen. So maybe more so.
Well, he can only get 7 years from everyone else too.
That's what I'm saying. So you only got 7 years. So when you're weighing all of it from the player perspective, it's like, yeah, you're making more per year, but you knew this situation was perfect. You were playing with the best player in the world. You were going to be we're going to figure out what the numbers are once he ends up signing, boys, but we're probably talking about a difference in $10 million. Like
total, yeah.
When
total.
When at the end he'll make 170-ish.
I wonder if Carolina is going to be having talks with him now, and if they can't get a deal done, they ship him again somewhere.
I would 100% if you can't get a deal done, I would ship him. I would not be left holding the bag like they did with Gensel. I would not.
And they got time.
Not to change the subject and go back to where we were, because I forgot to say this. If Pettersson doesn't like pick it up, he might get dealt too, because his no move clause kicks in July 1st, and they may be like, all right, he's done. He's out of here. Also, just randomly, I'd forgot
Trade
to
him
mention
to the
that.
Rangers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
One thing that is really cool for certain teams, and maybe players are like a little upset by it. I don't think they would be, but with the cap going up, you got some guys on long-term deals that are going to be some of the most amazing bargains you've seen in the NHL. Like this list right here from an article in The Athletic. This is just quick. You got Miro Heiskanen at $8.45 million a year till 2029. Lucas Raymond, $8 million a year till 2032. Cole Caulfield, $7.8 until 2031. Tim Stutzel, $8.35 till 2031. Jack Hughes, $8 million till 2030. It's like, holy shit. Now, obviously, these guys they have security, they have enough money for the rest of their lives, but these teams are like, holy shit, thank God we got them to sign this, because these guys are going to be elite star, some superstar players, and possibly be sitting at 4 or 5 on the number of for what you're making on the roster. It's wild to see that these young guys are going to be that underpaid as this contract, as this cap continues to rise.
Yeah,
I wonder if
everything.
the cap, if the cap rising and McDavid having, what does he have, 1 year after this? Like he's going to get
July
20.
1st he can sign. Witt thinks he's going to make
Right.
$16.5 million.
I think it would be amazing if he comes in at 16.5.
Yeah, but it could be 20. Like if it's at
know.
117 by the time he's a UFA.
I know. It's just crazy to think that this is where the game's at, boys. What was the cap when we came out of that lockout?
23 million. Every guy
it
made.
wasn't.
I think it was
36.
36. I think it was 36 million
Yeah,
or 39 million.
yeah.
And-
it was in the
and-
30s.
And
I was going
yeah,
to say 43.
you
I
go
thought it was
20
43.
years ago, guys got 24% of their salaries chopped off the block, and the cap was at 39. And right now, this
Hey,
league's
can we
coming
get
along.
the fucking retired guys some fucking insurance now?
That's
If
what Merle's
this is
tweeted
what
out.
the cap is?
Merle's tweeted that immediately. I just think that like if you look at what the number it is to pay for this insurance now, you're like, come on, let's make the sensible decision here. And Glenn Healy's very open to talking about this. He's like, I get this completely. We're gonna just beat this drum. This could be our biggest win if it ever happens.
Yeah.
Going back though to Carolina, if Rantanen does sign there, I should be responsible for opening up like a tab at that bar that we went to for that Pink Whitney event to show some love for Carolina fans and being wrong about my hot take. I hope that he ends up there, giving up what you guys gave up and not being able to bring back Gensel. But this cap situation and where it's going, I think has changed everything. So good luck signing your big man. And that's all I got to say about that. And I appreciate you guys letting me revisit and have that conversation.
No, I'm glad. I guess you kind of went into it. So your main reason on thinking and believing he won't re-sign in Carolina is that they just don't have the dough to give it in signing bonus and to get as high as other teams would.
Yeah, I think that with all this information, it just becomes a lot more enticing for a big market team to like front load the. Listen, I think that they offered a significant deal to Gensel, and they've kind of slowly but surely came off of that mindset. But we're talking about, would you not argue, the outside of Marner, who I would assume is going to re-sign in Toronto, the biggest free agent going into this offseason?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I mean, think of how many more teams are in play for this guy that need a legitimate top line winger who's put up the numbers that he has. And you hope that those numbers will continue not playing around McKinnon. But also from another team, though, if all of a sudden you see a 25% point drop off compared to what you're seeing with McKinnon, are you a little bit more reluctant to give him that big boy money that we're talking about?
I don't think so. I mean, he's a proven winner. He's a proven guy. He's put up 100-point seasons.
He's also so big. Like that like.
So you're going to pay a 40
me.
goal, 40 assist guy $14 million with a front loaded contract.
Well, I'm not, but yeah, someone will.
Okay. No, we talked about hockey fans. It's your money.
Okay, yeah, then I am. Yeah, I would if I was a Hurricanes fan.
Oh, man, yeah, I guess when you put it that way, 40 and 40 for 14. Fuck. I'll say it. I don't think he's Leon Draisaitl. And that makes me say no, but somebody's going to.
Do you think he's crazy if he ends up signing for even, let's say, $13.5 million AAV, where he could have got 12.5 in Colorado? Do you think he's crazy for leaving that situation? I think the most insane part is that they're going to lock in Cale Makar. I believe it's after next season.
What the fuck? They already have get?
And they already have Nate.
$1 million less than
that
McDavid.
You wouldn't want to be with that band for the rest of your career. That's to me is the most.
I'm with you on that.
Before we continue, guys, I want to talk about Jackpocket. And you've heard of ordering lottery tickets on your smartphone, so why not scratch-off tickets? Well, now with Jackpocket, America's #1 lottery app, you can order scratch-off tickets right on your phone in states like Texas, Massachusetts, Ohio, Arizona, and others. Jackpocket is your one-stop shop for ordering national lottery tickets like Powerball or Mega Millions and scratch-off tickets in select states. Download the Jackpocket app to start ordering tickets today. New customers use code PUCK, P-U-C-K, for a free Powerball or Mega Millions ticket. That's code PUCK. Can you imagine hitting a free Powerball ticket for $300 million? Thanks for coming. That's what Jackpocket can do. You can get scratch-offs now. You can get Powerball. You can get Mega Millions. Go right now. Jackpocket app. Use code PUCK for a free Powerball or Mega Millions ticket. So there was another trade, and Keith, I want to go into this one with you as you played with one of these guys, with the Flyers and Flames. They made a trade. They sent the Flames sent Andrei Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelletier and a second rounder and a seventh rounder to Philly in exchange for Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. Craig Conroy said basically this team deserves this. What they've done this year, this Dustin Wolf kid's out of control, and I think Calgary's. Would you guys say a top 2 or 3 shocking team this season based on what people thought going in?
Yeah,
and it's been buzzing. It's a hard place to play, and he went out. Dude, I was kind of shocked by this deal. Like I think Morgan Frost is a hell of a player. You see the goal he scored against Seattle on Sunday? Sick.
He's nice.
I just don't really see the upside for Philadelphia outside of getting Michkov, a Russian buddy who can help translate and make life a little easier. I don't understand why you get off Frost and Farabee. Now, Jans, you got a chance to play with Farabee. Did you play with Frost as well?
Yeah.
And I think that the upside on these guys is unbelievable. And this fits perfectly into Calgary's hand for younger players that could take that next step.
Yeah, and I think I wonder if how much of that FU match that Torts and Michkov got in on the bench, because then the trade happened that night to bring in another Russian, maybe kind of help in that what's his name?
Kuzmenko.
Kuzmenko seems like a fun, silly guy, so maybe he can help him. He can help him get acclimated a little bit to the North American life. But if I'm a Flames fan and a Flames player, I am all in on Craig Conroy. Like, he is absolutely going out. He's showing that locker room. Listen, guys, I know what I think they're the last place in the wild card right now, or the first place in the wild card. So he's telling his team, I believe in you guys. I'm going to go out, get 2 forwards that are going to help us win games. We didn't have to give up too much to get rid of them. I think Joel Farabee is going to have an unbelievable career there. I think he needed a little bit of a change. Just a guy that's kind of gotten lost in the weeds a little bit in Philly and maybe not being a Torts type of player. I think when he's playing at his best, he's a high-end skill guy. He makes a ton of good plays. I remember him making plays at the blue line, like crazy toe drags that, didn't happen when we first started in the game, but just the skill and the hockey IQ on Joel is off the charts. I think he's going to be a monster there. And then same with Morgan Frost. Frosty, he came up, and can't remember if he came when AV was there, but I remember Mike Yo, kind of being all over him and kind of, he was kind of his whipping boy a little bit, and which I didn't think was fair to Frosty because, he's just a young kid trying to make it in the league. And, and then he gets Torts, who probably not, he's not a type of guy, but I have seen him going out there blocking shots, sliding. So he tried to play that type of game, but I think just deep down, it wasn't his most comfortable way of playing the game of hockey. So I think going into Calgary, you got other skill guys around there with Hubie, Kadri, you got Uyghur back there in the back end. I think they're going to complement each other so much. And I tip my hat to Craig Conroy. First time I heard this too, I heard he got on the private plane to pick them up and to fly back with them.
That's unreal.
To get to know them a little bit and stuff like that. So,
well, they had the sushi
class
platter. That's why I heard that they got the good sushi there.
Yeah.
Crazy though,
Just
that
take advantage of the Nobu.
Philly's first rounder, Frost in 17 and Farabee in 18, gone in one deal. It's like, for a young team, it was surprising to me. And I know Torts does have a lot of say, it seems, with he's not just the coach. Seems like he's like a part of the front office. Maybe I'm totally off base there.
I just think it's weird though, because that Kuzmenko, like defensively and maybe structurally, like he's probably less sound than those two guys they just shipped out. Which is not, that was part of the issue in Vancouver, and then they move him. So like just the return and sometimes like you're trying to get rid of contracts too, because you only have so many under your umbrella to give out, and maybe they have other moves and things set up in place. But I just thought it was a bizarre thing. Now, Jans, what would you hope for from a high-end perspective, the way that these two players turn out? Like if a dream case scenario for Conroy, where do you think the ceiling is for those two players, where they end up in the lineup?
I could see, I think they're both second line guys at worst, Frosty third. But a Beezer can help out at your top six, easy money. I think he's a 30 goal guy when it comes down to it. I think he's a guy, if he's on the right situation, the power play, he can shoot the puck, he can pass the puck really well. He fights, he gets in the mix. So I really do. I see him as a 30-30 guy. Frosty, maybe a little bit less, with maybe around, 20 goals, 30 assists. But yeah, I think just two guys that are really, really going to help your organization, and not to mention two unbelievable locker room guys, two great teammates, and they're going in there. And I talked to Weegs and Hubie just to, to look out for them, just because, that's what we do as hockey guys. But I know they were excited to have them. And, when you have two of your best players, just, thrilled to have two guys that they don't even know. I think that's a huge thing.
Should I jump back on the Calgary train, boys?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Imagine seeing the Battle of Alberta first round. Edmonton locks up first overall in the West.
I don't think it's possible because Winnipeg fans, I'm getting your messages. I know we haven't talked about them much. Right now, they are the number one team in the NHL. I don't know if Edmonton can catch them. I think they're 9 points back. Like Winnipeg, you guys are a well-oiled machine. You get the best goalie in the world right now. Yeah. Scheifele's playing out of this world. So is Kyle Connor, Josh Morrissey. Like I really like watching your team, Winnipeg. I don't want you to hate me and say talk about Winnipeg. But I told you after last year's first round, I just, until this playoffs happen, I can't really care that much.
It's like Bonnie Blue. You just can't trust her.
I'm not going to ever compare the Jets to Bonnie Blue, ever. Because the Jets are a fun-ass team to watch play hockey. But I'm sorry, guys. Like, it's a great team. You guys got a solid roster. You're playing. You're on pace to win the President's Trophy. You guys show up in the first round and you work somebody over, then boom, then I'm into the Jets, guys. Right. I'm an Oilers fan, but I'll be into talking about your Jets. I'm sorry, guys. Listen to me. Do something in the playoffs. That series against Colorado, that'll turn a man off forever. You can't blame us for not talking about your team. You were money last year in the regular season. So bear with us here. We will get into more Jets. We need the playoffs to happen. And you guys have a deadly team.
That first place seed means more to Winnipeg than any other team. I think that they need a layup in the first round. You know what would be a fun first round, because somebody's going to go over the hump? Them in Minnesota. because I feel like those are the two teams. You're always amped up them going in. They always end up letting you down. So, and the way things are going, the way that Minnesota's heading, they'd be lucky to get that 8th seed at this point.
Hey, when you said Kuzmenko like brought over to Philly as partly to help Michkov and all those things, it just reminds me of the Gonchar and Gonchar with Malkin and Terrien. It's just an all-time classic where Michel Terrien brings Gonch in. He's like, I'm talking to Gino, and you're gonna tell him what I'm saying. And he had sat him down for turnovers, and he's telling. Can
I just get preface that at that point the system is no matter who it was, didn't matter if it was Sid or Gino. When you crossed over the red line, you had to dump the puck in, and Gino wasn't fucking dumping the puck in.
No wonder why the cap was at 37.
So after so many turnovers, this meeting's end up happening. I'll hand it back over to you, Whitty.
So he's talking, and then Gonch is talking in Russian, and then Malkin's like, he says whatever back, and Terrien's like, what'd he say? He's like, oh, nothing. He gets it. He's like, what'd he say? He's like, he said Benjamin McCann will go back to Russia. Malkin's like, I don't dump the puck in.
Try it.
I don't even think Malkin wanted guys on his line dumping it in. Or he's like, hey, you dump it in, you go get the thing. I'm not going to get it. That's when
job. The KHL was making more than us too, so he was probably like, "I'll really leave."
Fuck. Yager was making $10 million a year playing home games over there.
Yager left the NHL to get more money in the KHL, I believe.
Yeah.
So
he had a rough night at the tables.
Yeah. Just looking quickly as we talk about, and we have Jim Nill joining us today, guys. What an awesome interview this is! Great human being.
Nail gun. I didn't realize he was a nail gun back in the day.
Oh my God.
Shit.
And the coolest thing he said was like, I didn't like seeing people taking advantage of my teammates. What a fucking guy this guy is.
It's like Biz at Houston's.
So right now, Winnipeg would play Calgary, and what disgusts me is that would give Edmonton Colorado. Oh my God. Talk about a first round matchup you don't want. G had in the outline that he thought I said that I didn't think the Wild were going to make the playoffs. I didn't say that. He must have misheard me. I don't think the Wild are going to end up a top 3 team in the Central. I think they're going to be the top wild card team, and Colorado will overtake them as the 3rd place team in the Central. So that would leave. I mean, I guess that would leave Edmonton, Minnesota. I'd take that matchup in a heartbeat.
Oh, you think?
I would take
Travel
that.
You said they need a layup.
Yeah, you're laughing at that one.
Biz, you said they need a layup in the first round. There are no layups.
No, I'm saying for Edmonton, if I'm Edmonton, I'm licking my chops. I'd much rather play Minnesota than go and play LA. From my understanding, is Brant Clark is on the table. I think the LA Kings are in win now mode because of the Kopitar and Doughty situation. And I heard his name floating around out there. I would not want LA over Minnesota in that case. There are definitely some fun matchups that would happen. Like currently right now, I think it would be the Battle of Ontario as well. So
Ottawa's 4 points back of Toronto for second in the Atlantic. Like Ottawa's been playing awesome. I think they've won 4 in a row. Now they're going on the road. But last trade to announce in a crazy week seems like a little bit of a pre-Four Nations trade deadline. And then we could have madness with these cap numbers after the Four Nations before the actual trade deadline. But the Sharks traded forward Mikael Granlund and defenseman Cody Ceci to the Dallas Stars in exchange for a 2025 first-round pick and a conditional 4th rounder. We talked about Granlund like a month or 2 ago and how good he's been with San Jose, not just this year, but last year. Awesome player. So Dallas brings him in. Dallas brings Ceci in, who has been a whipping boy like everywhere. And talk about getting that. I get you, Cody, buddy. I've been there. It stinks. But
teammates loved him in Edmonton.
Loved him.
I heard that they were
when he scored that goal.
Yeah, I heard Draisaitl basically nixed the trade of him out of town. Was like, if you trade him, I ain't re-signing here.
Yeah, it seems
I just made that up.
It seems like I think there's times too. You guys tell me if you disagree. Where when there is a whipping boy for a team, if that's a good guy, if that's a guy teammates like and respect, like they really almost take it a little personal themselves. Like they're almost like they feel bad for the guy and they want to carry the guy. You remember Connor Brown talking about Darnell Nurse in the playoffs last year?
Time.
Like, it's like we're one in here. We're a family in here. And if this fan base is constantly calling out one of our guys. Like, you're calling out all of us. Like, we're going to have our guys back. And yeah, it seems like Cody Ceci is a favorite wherever he goes. But I like these moves for Dallas, man. Dallas has been playing some great hockey. Dallas, just the market, it's quiet. And their team's really good, and I think everyone talks about Stanley Cup contenders, and they just throw their name in there, but they don't get nearly enough love as they deserve. Neither do you Jets fans. You're kind of like the Jets a little bit. Like, you guys could be there at the end, but Dallas, I mean, they go to the conference finals last year, and they look just as good this year. Keith had mentioned to the group chat this week that he's really actually rooting for Dallas because of Jamie Benn, you said.
Yeah, Jamie Benn, and after interviewing Jim Nill, just seems like a salt of the earth guy, but yeah, I just think of Jamie Benn and his career and playing against him. I remember him coming in as an 18-year-old kid. He started on the fourth line. He was I think he was a fourth round pick. I want to say maybe even fifth round. He could be a first rounder for all I know. But just really earned his stripes. You know what I mean? Wasn't one of those kids that came. Fifth rounder, yeah. So came in and earned everything that he's gotten. Started out grinding, playing with Steve Ott, getting, being a piece of shit to play against, and then, ends up winning, the scoring title one year. He's been a stud in this league for a long time. Really, helped get that organization to where they are. Obviously, with the help of other guys like Madonna and such. But I just think for what he's given the league, I think he's an easy guy to root for. And I feel like there's a couple of those guys every year. Even last year with Dallas, with Pavelski. There are those guys that you just want to see win a cup that you really think deserve it, that have played the game the right way for a long time. And Jamie Benn's one of those guys for me because nothing was given to him, right? And he's earned everything. And, I think it would be amazing to see him lift Lord Stanley.
And the way it was going a few years ago with him dealing with all those injuries and the way that he handled himself in the offseason to get his game back to where it needed to be. I mean, we talked about it actually in the interview with Jim Nill about the PP whack from, who was it at the time? The president of the team?
Jim Light.
Yeah. And the comments. So just, I kind of second everything you said, Jans. And also another thing that Nill said in the interview was that, the East is so jammed up that a lot of teams are holding out thinking, hey, maybe we do end up going on a later season push and find ourselves in a playoff situation. So not a lot of sellers. So for him to go out and maybe get a Cody Ceci who can help out be that sixth defenseman, fifth, sixth guy for him, you make that move early enough and you don't have to overpay. And if nothing else ends up coming about, at least you got your insurance policy. So I think a very sneaky move, and I don't think they're done by any means.
No.
I just think it was the right one to make at this time. And one more big one, boys, and you might get your wish, Jans. You might get Jamie Benn hosting Lord Stanley. And is there any possibility, if they go deep enough, that Tyler Seguin returns?
I don't know. I haven't seen that.
Because man, the chemistry between Duchesne, Marchment, and him, that was like having another first line.
Yeah.
And the way that they're like last year, they dealt with injuries as well. So they were only able to play about 40 of the games together. And I remember last year at the time, like analytically and any way you looked at it, point production, goals producing, like they were a NHL first line. So to get that type of depth back, especially with Stankoven and Wyatt Johnston playing the way they are, like you're a fucking wagon.
I remember when Sean Horkoff went to Dallas from Edmonton. I was just asking about the team. I'm like, oh, what's Ben like? And he just wrote nail gun. I was like, oh yeah, like that playing against me. He's like, dude, he's the best guy. He's the best leader. Like raving about this guy as a person and a player. So that is somebody that you really want to see like hoist the Stanley Cup because of how he's done it. Just when I looked up where he was drafted 5th round, he was drafted out of the BCHL. Then the next season he played in Kelowna, had a good year, and then the following year he lit it up, and then they won the WHL championship. He had 33 points in 19 playoff games. So I think that Dallas picks him, and 2 years later they're like, holy shit, we got a first-round talent. We got in the 5th round because he was in the BCHL. Maybe he was a late bloomer. That's a guy we would love to interview. Seems like kind of maybe
I think he's
he retires.
Post career. Let's not forget the biggest ad they have coming back is fucking Glassbanger.
Glassbanger will be out of prison. He'll be out of prison right as the Western Conference Finals begin, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he'll be able to bring Bonnie Blue to the game.
Out for Western Conference
he can
Finals.
bang Bonnie Blue while she bangs the glass.
You don't think he's going to rent her for the day?
Yeah, I'm sure that'd be real expensive. So Before we throw to Jim Nill, bad news for Dallas. Miro Heiskanen. To me, it looked totally fluke and just a shitty break. Now, I've seen it's only week to week for Heiskanen, thank God, because it looked like dude, the guy went down. He's grabbing his knee. Like, you're like, oh, no. But it just says week to week. Out of 4 nations, which sucks for Finland. But
I don't think Mark Stone's that type of player, like where the old accidentally on purpose. I think it was a fluke play, but I didn't break it down. Like,
it was Rupe
I saw
Hintz.
it twice.
It was Rupe Hintz. He got tangled up with him. But Biz, you could take a look at that as we throw it over now to one of the most respected men in the game. That is not an exaggeration at all. A guy who was an enormous part of building those Detroit dynasty teams and those 4 Stanley Cups, and a man who kind of waited a long time, and we get into it a little bit about before he became a GM and in charge of a team, and just an awesome guy. So right now we're going to throw it over to Dallas Stars GM Jim Nill. Guys, before we go any further, I want to talk to you about Body Armor. We are so lucky to be sponsored by our Body Armor, the best water in the world. Right now, I'm crushing some regular water, but my guy G, he's got the Flash IV. And this episode is brought to you by Body Armor Flash IV. G, I've seen you drinking that all show long. How good is that? What's your flavor?
Oh, it's incredible. I got the fruit punch going right now, but they also have this cucumber lime, which is incredible.
What?
As you know, I was at University of Minnesota all weekend. I need the hydration. I am dehydrated as one could be right now, and there's nothing better. There's nothing better than the Body Armor Flash IV. The Flash IV, it's real hydration with Body Armor Flash IV packed with electrolytes, zinc for added immune boost, and no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or dyes. The Flash IV provides the rehydration your body needs, whether you're feeling a little under the weather, just had an intense workout, or you're recovering from a long weekend like G in Minnesota. Body Armor Flash IV helps bring you back. It's the best. It tastes great. I cannot wait to taste that cucumber lime one. I love it. And the regular water, also the best in the business. Get yours today at Walmart or a local grocery store near you. That's Body Armor Flash IV. Give it a shot. Your body will thank you. It's an honor now to be joined by a very special guest. Every person I asked about this man said that one of the best people they've ever met in hockey. The 2023 and 24 NHL GM of the Year and 4-time Stanley Cup champion in Detroit. The GM of the Dallas Stars, Jim Nill. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be on your show. I follow your show all the time, and I know you each individually. I've watched you guys all play, so it's exciting to we can go back in some old days, back to the Owen Sound days and BU days and under 18 days and all those. So it's an honor.
We appreciate it, and it's been a good year for you guys. It's been a great run since you got to Dallas, and we have so much to ask you about. I guess right now we could start with this season, right? A little bit of a start that was slower, and things have really picked up lately. Like, how did you approach going into a year when you had such a great run last year? You know, you're 1 round away from the Cup final, and then it all begins again. You've been through that in Detroit. Like, how do you talk to the players prior to the year we got to get back to the swing of things as the regular season begins?
Well, every year is different and brings us different challenges. And, we start out the year, we had a great training camp. We had that trip to Finland, which was kind of different for us. It was a great trip. We didn't win any games, but still a great trip. I was happy for the Finnish players and for the rest of our staff to enjoy those type of situations. But got off to a slow start. We had some guys injured. Jason Robertson missed all the summer. I got a phone call in July from Jason, and he had to come in and see the doctors. Ended up he had a cyst on his foot that needed an operation, and he couldn't train all summer. Didn't really start training until halfway through training camp. Finally started skating the last week of camp. So not surprising that he had a slow start to camp. And Wyatt Johnston got off to a slow start. I think a little bit of the pressure of the 4 Nations tournament, young guy going through that. A young guy starting to live on his own. There's the story about Joe Pavelski, living with Joe Pavelski. Now he's living on his own. He's a young man living on his own, and just a lot of changes. So we had a lot of guys get off to slow starts. And then we started to get some injuries. But I give a credit to the coaching staff's done a great job. We got good structure. We've brought in a lot of young players. The other night we played 7 rookies on our team. And that's not easy when you want to be a contending team. And our coach has done a great job, and the players have done a good job of adapting and getting their games up to speed. So been a lot of different things going on, but like I say, we're hanging in there. We will hit a little bump in the road, but we haven't lost more than 2 games in a row all season. And that's a compliment to our coaching staff and to our players.
Jim, you're known as like a player's GM and how close you become with the players. When Wyatt Johnston's going through something like that, do you like call him in the office and talk to him yourself? Do you kind of delegate that to the coaches? Like, how do you handle that as a general manager with such a young player? And you said living on his own now and going through all these changes in pro hockey.
Yeah, no, I'm a big relationship type of guy. I think it's important. You got to build relationships. It's a different type of athlete than when I played and probably when you guys played. You know, the game has changed a lot. And so I think it's important to build relationships. That's the same with Pete DeBoer's the same way and his staff. And we tried to build relationships. We got an open door policy. So you're always talking to the player. Some of it, he has to go through it himself. It's just part of life. Doesn't matter what you're doing. We've all gone through the good times and the bad times. You got to go through, and in the end, it makes you stronger. So we're there to help him, but he's a really grounded young man, and he knew where he had to get to, and it just took him time. He had to figure it out.
And in all your years in Detroit, we'll get into that. It was like the drafting and finding these gems maybe a little later that like created so much success. And Wyatt Johnston's an example of a kid who, like, you're like, how did this kid go 23rd overall? Like, do you credit your scouts? And obviously you've been seen at rinks forever and you're doing a lot of that on your own, but is that just another example of a guy who maybe you saw something in him that other people didn't?
Well, then I got a great scouting department, great staff. It's all about the people you surround you with yourself by. You know, that's the one thing I learned in Detroit. Kenny Holland, you know, Jimmy Devellano, Scotty Bowman. Surround yourself with good people, and they can make you look pretty good. So that's one thing I learned pretty early in my career. And Joe McTonnell, I got to give a credit to him. He's our head scout. The Wyatt Johnston's a great story. You know, it actually was down here in Frisco. It was during COVID. And so they had the under 18 tournament, World Championships down here. It was the only, you know, Texas, we're one of the few states that could host anything like that. So they brought their tournament down here. Wyatt Johnston hadn't played a game till he got down here. He ended up playing 7 games his draft year. All 7 games were played down here in Frisco. Joe McTonnell and the staff. But when we scout, we do a lot of underage scouting also. We do a book on everybody when they're, you know, 16, 17, keep a track of them, see their development path. And Joe McTonnell just had a gut feeling about him. He played well in the under 18, but he was really a third line type of guy. So it's not like he was, the center of attraction. You're talking Connor Bedard was there, Logan Stankoven was there, McTavish and Anaheim, some really good players, and he was kind of second fiddle. But Joe had just a great gut feel for him. And I remember going to the draft. It was getting close to our pick, and I said, Joe, are you sure this is the guy? And he said, this is the guy. And ended up Detroit called us to make a trade. They were going after the cost of the goalie, and Stevie called and said, we'd like to move up. So I pulled Joe aside and said, is he going to be there when we pick later? And he said, yeah, he'll be there. He just hasn't had enough exposure. And so we pulled the trade. And out of that, we actually got Logan Stankoven also. So
oh, Jesus.
It kind of worked out well for us. But all my hat goes off to our scouting stuff. They did a great job of managing that draft.
And you got Haskin and Ottinger and Robertson in one year too. You must be tipping these guys out big time.
Well, you know what? They do a great job. Sometimes you got to be a little bit lucky, and but you just stick with it. Stick with it. We got a philosophy, and you know, a big part people kind of forget about too is you draft these kids, but there's still a process after that, and that's where I give a lot of credit to our development team. You know, we got guys out there all the time, working, and after you draft a guy, they're with them all the time. They're helping develop them. They're up in the junior teams and college teams and following them around, going over to Europe. And then it's our staff down in our farm teams down in Austin, Texas, the Texas Stars, and our coaching staff does a great job down there. We send kids down there, and I'm a big believer in you need to play in the minors. Unless you're a special player, you need to play in the minors. And it's a lot easier to go down there and come back up than to start up in the NHL, flying around in charter planes, staying in 5-star hotels and eating whatever you want to eat, and then going down. So that's a big part of our philosophy is go down there, play with your own age group, and sow your oats down there. And you know what? I remember when I was in the minors, it was the most fun I ever had. Everybody's making the same
The
money.
best.
Yeah, it's the best. Everybody's making the same money. Most of the guys aren't married. You're a bunch of young guys, making $70,000 a year. I think you're making about $7 million a year. You're living like a king coming out of junior or college, and it's a great time. It's the best time.
Jim, you mentioned surrounding yourself with good people, and obviously you've done a great job with that. And is there a process with the draft? Because obviously you can't go out and see every player as much as the scouts. And are they helping you make that call on draft day? You're kind of letting them handle it, or are you hands on with that as well?
They're pretty well 100%. It's up to them. That's something I learned. I learned that a long time ago. I used to be that guy when I was in Detroit. Kenny Holland was the GM, and I was the GM. And there was nothing worse, and Kenny was good at it too. Kenny let me make the calls. For me to come in and see somebody 1 or 2 games, and they're seeing these guys 10 or 15 times, I might see them when they're having the worst day of their life. They might have broke up with their girlfriend that day. They might have been sick that day. It's not the right thing to do, and it's a lot more different here. When I was working out in Detroit, I could see thousands of games. You get Windsor, Saginaw, Kitchener, under 18, University of Michigan, you name it. There's games everywhere. Down here in Dallas, I'm on an island. Everything's 3-4 hours to get to, and the minute I go up somewhere to scout somewhere is the minute that something happens down here in Dallas, and I got to get back. So I've learned those guys are living it, breathing it every day, and I got to trust them, and they've done a good job.
And you mentioned that was your job, and and feeling trusted and feeling like you have that ability to make the pick is probably so meaningful to you. And then that brings us back to Detroit. And I think it was 98, 99. You get Datsuk in the 6th round and Zetterberg in the 7th round the year after. What was it about? Now, obviously the Russia thing with Datsuk maybe, but then Zetterberg goes that late. Like, when you look back now, do you think how crazy it is as we do that they fell that much? And what did you see in those guys? Obviously, besides the genius in their game, but what were other people missing?
Well, Zetterberg was a unique story too. I remember flying over. Håkan Andersson and I were in Detroit. Håkan's famous for being the scout in Sweden and Europe for Detroit all those years. And we went over to watch another guy, actually. It was a guy that the Islanders ended up drafting, and turned out that it was in northern Finland, middle of nowhere, and watching this tournament, and there was this small little kid that he was a dog chasing the bone. He was on the puck all the time, and we just liked him, and we left that tournament. I said, you know what, Hockey, keep an eye on this guy when you go back. He did, and it's a funny business, Hockey and these players, when we were watching them, everybody thinks they're the finished product, and they're not. Henrik Zetterberg at the time was about 5'8", 145 pounds. And you're sitting there trying to project what's he going to turn into. And one day you wake up 3 years later, they've learned how to work out. They've committed themselves to eating better, whatever it is. It's human nature, some of it. And it turns out he ends up being 6 feet, 185 pounds, and a great player. So a lot of things that goes into the drafting and developing of these players, and the projection that scouts have to have. And that's the tough part of the business. And it's a special feel that a lot of these scouts have.
I was just going to say, we've talked to GMs in the past where, they go from being a scout to player development and kind of being in all those roles, and how much it eventually helps when you are a GM, knowing what those guys are going through. And like you said, kind of entrusting in them. When you retired, did you know that you were going to jump into being a scout? Is that what you wanted? Like, did you know you were eventually wanted to be a general manager?
As we all know, we got all different paths we follow and stuff. I was with Detroit. The team was really starting to struggle, and they were kind of starting to the rebuild. This was back in the late 80s, 90s. They were going through they had a tough year there. And Jimmy Devellano came to me. He was a GM. I was playing in Detroit. And he asked me if I'd like to go down to Adirondack. That was our farm team, Glens Falls, New York, Adirondack Red Wings. Asked me, he thought I had a great, he liked how I handled myself, my leadership. And he said, would you like to go down and get into coaching? And I love coaching. And I thought, what a great way to start my career. So I went down there with Barry Melrose. Everybody knows who Barry is. Barry had success in Adirondack, then moved on to LA Kings, and went from there, and then famous TV on ESPN. But Barry was a great coach. I went down there for 2 years with him, got into coaching, loved it. And then along came expansion, and Mel Bridgman, Ottawa Senators. Mel Bridgman became the GM of Ottawa Senators. They didn't have a franchise yet. I played with Mel in Detroit, both end of our careers. And Mel said, Jim, I've just been hired as a GM of the Ottawa Senators. We don't have a franchise yet, but would you like to come on board? And I don't know what role. You got to do some scouting. We had an expansion draft we're going to have to do if we get a franchise. We didn't even have the franchise yet. Got to do some amateur scouting for the draft. We got an expansion draft. So I joined Mel, and what a great experience. Did everything. Right from, we didn't have an office yet. We're based out of Canada. The team didn't have a lot of money. I still remember the day they were going to do the presentation to the NHL, and Mel called me and said, Jim, I don't think we're going to make it. Have you got your expenses in yet? And I said, no. He said, get them in because I don't think we're going to make it. They go do the presentation. It was Tampa Bay and Ottawa, did the presentation to the league. It was an amazing presentation. I saw the presentation. Amazing job. It was Randy Sexton and all those guys did an amazing job. Ended up getting a franchise. Didn't have the money. Didn't have the rink. The rink that's out there in Canada now was not out there. And the biggest obstacle to that rink was the funding, but also the infrastructure to build the roads to get into it. It was going to cost like $50 million just to build the roads. So we're like, how are we going to get this money? You got to get government support in that. So just a great experience. I went there for 3 years with them, went through the expansion draft, I went through the amateur scouting. John Ferguson was kind of my boss. He was running the thing, and I got so much respect for John. I played for John in Winnipeg and did that for 3 years. Kenny Holland then became the assistant GM in Detroit, and Kenny and I played together. He called me and said, I'm looking for a head scout. Would you like to do that? I looked at it and said, what a great opportunity to go back to Detroit. The rest is history. I got into the scouting a little bit more, player development. Kenny became the GM. I became assistant GM, and here we are today. So it's amazing how your paths go. I love coaching. Other than playing, coaching is the best job in the world. You're there, you're on the bench and stuff. But I had a young family, and I really started to enjoy the business side. The contractual side, the salary cap. I started to really get into that, and here we are today. End up down in Dallas, Texas somehow.
You ever think of pulling a Lou Lamoriello and going from the up top down to the bench?
Divorce on the hot seat.
No. I told people don't worry about that. That's one thing I've learned. Probably because I got to coach a little bit. I learned that coach. It's a tough job. Coaching is a tough job, managing all these players, and I've realized that it's easy to sit up top and criticize, but when you're down in the fire, when I hired my coaches, when I hired Pete DeWar, I said, I'm hiring you to coach the team. That's not, I'm not, we're going to discuss things. We'll discuss players. We'll discuss lineups. But in the end, your call is the final call, or I might as well go behind the bench. That's why I'm hiring you. So that's kind of been my philosophy.
How frequent is the contact? Like, are you guys chatting every day about this stuff, or like do you try to give them a little bit of leash and not be around them too much?
I'm there almost every day. I go down, just drop in. And sometimes I know just drop in, say hello, sometimes get into heavy conversation. But I'm around 90% of the time. Sometimes I'm on with scouting, doing things like that. But I'm in communication daily with them pretty well. And I think it's important. And I'm really there just for a sounding board. As I mentioned, Pete's got to make that final call. But he wants input too. He's, it's not easy when you got to sit somebody out or you're going to take somebody off the power play. He wants my input, what I think. And a lot of times he'll also say, hey, can you go talk to the player after I make this decision? Just to kind of calm the water. So we work together pretty good that way.
So 22 years in Detroit, and I imagine like with all the mentors you've had, but you and Kenny Holland, it was like these two guys together have just built this dynasty of this team, and it has to do with drafting. And then you look at the 02 team, it was like Hasek's brought in, Brett Hull's brought in. So is it more, do you think Kenny Holland, that was the biggest thing for you and your relationship with him and helping you grow to where you're at now?
Well, definitely. Kenny, Jimmy Devellano was a big part, and Scotty Bowman. I had three. I went to the University of Detroit hockey school. You're talking Scotty Bowman, one of the best all-around coaches there is. And Scotty has such a great mind. He still's got a great mind. I see him every time I go down to Tampa. And the way he analyzed the game, I really still believe he's the best bench boss in game action coach there is. He was so quick in the way he analyzed things. It was amazing to watch. We'd go into a game. Remember, we were going into Washington one time, and Washington had a big, tough team. And we go in there, and they start their top line. And who does Scotty Bowman put out there? He puts Igor Larionov, Slava Kozlov, and some other little guy out there. And these tough guys look down at Igor, and Igor just kind of looks up at him like, what are you going to do? They drop the puck. They keep the puck for about 3 minutes, change, and that's the game, the way they go type of thing. So it's amazing how, I don't know if people remember when we beat Philly for the Stanley Cup, the big talk, that was Eric Lindros's line, the
Legion of
Doom. And the big
Doom.
talk was how, who's he going to put out against him? We had some bigger with Bob Rouse, some bigger, heavier guys. He ends up putting Brian Rafalski and Nick Lidstrom out against those guys. They ran around trying to hit him, never touched the puck, and it ended. We won the series. I think it was 4 straight. But just the way he thought the game, he just so good in game action, how he managed it. So it's Scotty Bowman, Jimmy Devellano, Hall of Famer. He was a draft wizard with the New York Islanders, came to Detroit. He really started the franchise, kind of mentored Kenny, and then I got to come on board. I was the other spoke with these guys. So I had some great mentors.
When I think of those old Red Wings teams, you think of a lot of veteran guys and then sprinkled in with some young talent. And with how young the league is now, I feel like you've done a great job of bringing in, older veterans and keeping guys too, where it seems more nowadays guys are moving off from their veterans, but, bringing in Pavelski, keeping, Jamie Benn around for forever. Like, is that something that you think of purposely that you guys used to do in Detroit, or it's just how it's rolling?
Well, I'm a big believer in experience and veteran leadership in that. I think it's so important. The league is getting younger. The NHL, it is a young man's league, but it's still, if it's veteran, I don't want to just say veteran, or it's a tough league. It's not a kids league. It's still a men's league. And you've got to have these guys that have been through the wars. It's just so important. That's when I heard Joe Pavelski, that was kind of my mindset. I came from Detroit, and that's where I remember when Scotty brought in Fetisov. And he was at the end of his career. And I remember we played him the one playoffs, and he was struggling. And we go down after the game and talk to Scotty and say, Scotty, do you think Fetisov he's not going to make it? And he said, he'll be all right. He kept playing him, and we won the cup. And there's just something that the veterans bring, the calming influence, the leadership. Somewhere during the season and in a playoff run, the train's going off the tracks. It's going to happen. You're going to go through, and you guys have lived it. You guys have all played the game. Yeah, the train's off the tracks, and you don't think it's going to come back. Those are the guys that put the train back on the tracks. It's the things they say. It's the young guys they grab. It's being in the hotel room and grabbing a young kid and going for a walk and buying him a beer or taking him out for lunch or something. Those are the things that a coach and a GM can't do, but a veteran player can do it. And I just think it's so important to have those guys. And the other part I'm big on is the younger guys, they're coming up through their career, and they're building a career. They've made money, but haven't made big money, and they want points and everything else. And when you get these older guys, all of a sudden it's all about winning.
Yeah.
It's not about, maybe I'm not on the power play as much as I should be. I didn't get any points tonight, but we got the win. It's when you get to the part of your career where the 2 points for the win are more important than the 1 or 2 points you get personally, you got a good team. And that's where you want to get to with the veteran guys. That's what they bring.
It's so true. And you just see it. Remembering myself as a young guy, like, I had an assist, and you're like, dude, we lost. Like it's easier said than done. And I think people hear that and they're like, what the hell? It's all about the team. But you went into talking about like Fetisov and maybe going down as the staff and being like, Scotty, I don't know. And it kind of brings up a question for me. I've always wondered, and coaches and GMs have a particular relationship. And there's times where GMs want to see a lineup that they like, and then they see a lineup that the coach likes. Like, how do you approach talking about who's in the lineup, what the lines are? Like, is that all on the coach? Does it have to get really bad for you to go down and say, listen, like, I don't like this guy in his position? Like, that's such a big relationship to have. And how do you take a step away and really give the responsibility to the coach? And when do you step in and say, hey, listen, I'm not seeing this right now?
Yeah, no, that's kind of the daily battle you live. But, I get back to, I have a lot of respect for Pete and his staff, and I get a lot of respect for coaches, period. That's a tough job. They're dealing with They're dealing with 20 to 24 players. Some guys aren't playing. Some guys are. Some guys aren't getting the ice time they want. But we have healthy discussions, and we have our battles. Don't worry, coaches and I, we have our battles. But in the end, when it's all said and done, they have to make that final call. They're the ones that have to put the player in the ice. And if I tell them you got to play this guy, they don't believe in it. I'm taking the power of their coaching capability away from them, and I can't do that. They have to have that leverage or the power. They need that power on the bench to be able to say to the player, I got the back in the gym. Here's why I'm sitting out, or here's why you're playing with this guy, whatever. They need that support. So it's healthy discussions, but I think we got a mutual respect, and we know that. We'll go at it, but when it's all over and done, you shake hands and say, let's go win them. Let's go win tonight and move on.
What was it like being around Stevie Y? Like, you hear just about his intensity and how stoic he is and just like the respect he commands. Like, it must have been like just witnessing what he was able to do. The 1 year he had, like, he was playing on one leg. Like, did you marvel at what he was able to do from just an overall perspective?
Yeah, no, Stevie's, he was, first of all, amazing player, but he's an amazing person to go with that. I was fortunate. I got to play with him, and then I got to be on the management side as he was still a player. And then he ended up working with us. He got into his management side, retired, and followed Kenny Nelson around. So I've had a great relationship with Stevie. I respect him so much, but such a determined athlete.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing how you talk about in one leg, that was the Olympic year that year. And I remember I think 2002, Salt Lake City. And people don't realize Stevie had his leg cut off at the knee, and they put a new knee kind of on it. They had to change the angle of it and stuff. Never been done before. It was a doctor out of London, Ontario that did it. And amazing what he went through just to come back from that. But then he's playing, and he's pretty well on one leg, and the Olympics are up. He's never played in the Olympics. He wants to go to the Olympics. We're sitting there saying, Stevie, let's take the Olympics off. We get the playoffs coming up. So let's take that time off. He was going to the Olympics, and God bless him. He went there, and I think it was Mary Lemieux and him. They carried that team. That's the year, I think, the goaltending, I think it was Joseph and Brodeur. I think they had to make a decision. They started with Joseph, ended up going to Brodeur. Pat Quinn was the coach. There was a lot of controversy going on, and Stevie and Mario was towards the end of his career then too. And they put the team on their back, those two veteran guys, and won the gold for Canada. And then Stevie came back, kept playing. He'd fall down, and he'd have to use a stick to get back up. He was really on one leg. He was on one leg, and he did that through the whole playoffs, and it was amazing to watch.
That's an example of a guy you're talking about changing to wins, where when you were playing with him, it's 130 points. It's just this offensive wizard. And then you got to witness Bowman. I believe it's been said, told him, listen, to win a cup, you need to change your game a little bit. Is that true?
That you're dead on. That what I just talked about sooner. That was Stevie he was a 50, 60, 70 goals every year type of thing. One of the leading scorers, and Detroit wasn't winning. And Scotty came in and kind of laid the groundwork. And I don't want to say he changed Stevie's game. He made Stevie realize that. And Stevie wanted that too. It's not like Stevie was fighting it. Stevie just needed that direction. And Scotty made him understand that. And away we went. And reeled off those 4 cups.
You guys were pretty early with Europeans, and I know they'd been in the league, but there was always this idea of Russians being soft or Swedes being soft, and it's not true at all. But were you hearing that then when all the Russians were coming in, maybe before the cups and after the 95 sweep? It's our fans saying, oh, we need some more toughness, and you guys are saying, listen, it's here. Was that always bullshit to you, the idea of that Russians weren't hard players to play against?
Yeah, we were into the skill. And now I'm going to talk on both sides of my mouth. We're fortunate. We had the Bob Proberts, Darren McCarty's, Gerard Gallant's, Harold Snep's, Mel Bridgman's. We had a lot of guys that weren't carrying roses around on their own either. So we had a good mix. And I give Scotty credit towards the end when we started winning those cups. He brought those guys in. Joey Kosher had retired. He had retired from the Rangers, and we were kind of struggling and didn't quite have enough toughness. And we ended up calling Joey Kosher in. Scotty had a good talk to him. He brought him back. That's the year we beat Philly. Joey Kosher came back. So Scotty, as much as he loved the skill in that, and we all loved the skill, he knew there was still another element you needed. And, you look at our fourth line, Joey Kosher's, Kirk Maltby, those guys played hard. Chris Draper, Brendan Shanahan was tough as anybody. We had a tough team. Bob Rouse, he brought in Bob Rouse for that element on the back end. So Scotty had a good feel for that. He had a real good feel for that.
You were a nail gun yourself. We were looking up your hockey DB. I think the last year of junior, you had 250 PIMs. How are you so calm? Like, you seem like you were like,
yeah. Did you just snap when you played?
Yeah.
I didn't like fighting until I got into it, I guess. That makes sense. But I didn't like when people took advantage of people. I wasn't the type of guy that I'm sitting in the start of the game and saying, okay, I'm going to go out and fight this guy. The guy wasn't that type of fighter. I wasn't big enough to do that. But I don't like when people take advantage of somebody, or somebody's the underdog and somebody takes advantage of that. That used to drive me crazy. And, but just, I was competitive. I had to be, you guys know, to get in the NHL, you got to be competitive. It's about winning battles, and just do that and things would happen, and away it went.
We noticed that you were on the 1980 Canadian Olympic team. So you were there for the Miracle on Ice, and Whit mentioned that you guys had lost to the Russians 4-3 before they went on to play the States.
Yeah, no, a great story. We were a bunch of, I played junior, and my last year junior, Father David Bauer was wanting to recreate the Olympic program in Canada again. And so they were starting to scout, and they saw some guys in junior and stuff and said, hey, you want to go to, that was back in 78. And they said, we're starting the Olympic program over again. It's got to be amateurs. And instead of turning pro, I was drafted by St. Louis. Would you like to go to college for a couple of years and try out the Olympic team? And I thought, you know what? When are you ever going to get a chance to do this again? So did that. We were a bunch of college players in Canada. Some guys were junior guys that went to college like I did. Some guys were in college. Talking Randy Gregg, Glenn Anderson. We had some good players. Glenn Anderson's in the Hall of Fame. Randy Gregg was going to University of Edmonton. He was a doctor. Paul McLean, Tim Waters. We had a pretty good team. But anyways, getting to these. So we're in the Olympics, and we'd play the U.S. team all the time. That's who we were that was our kind of exhibition games. And we played them about 16 times. We beat them about 10 or 16. So they were good matches, both good teams. But we're playing the Russians. We have to beat the Russians to get into the medal round. We'd lost the game before to the Finns. We lost on an icing call. If we beat the Finns, we're in the medal round. We lost to the Finns. Finns had iced the puck. There was a race for the puck. Our goalie came out to handle it, and he missed it and it went in the net. So now we got to beat the Russians to get the medal round. Played the Russians. We lost 4-3. Tretiak was in net. Tretiak got yanked against us. And that's why I think it's Michigan, I think was the other goalie.
Yeah.
That's why Michigan played against the U.S. team. So
it worked against you guys.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how that happened. The U.S. beats Russia. Now, that wasn't for their gold medal game. They still had to go beat, I believe it was the Swedes that beat to win it.
Finland.
But amazing. I tell people this story. That 1980 Olympics probably is the reason maybe I'm a GM in Dallas right now. 1980, hockey wasn't big in the U.S. That's the Cold War days. There was no hockey in Anaheims and Floridas and Dallases and stuff. Hockey wasn't big in the U.S. You had the original 6 teams, but it wasn't big. All of a sudden, these young kids play the big Russian monster, beat them, and it's in Lake Placid, New York, and bang, they become who are these young guys, these college kids? Hockey got on the map. And I firmly believe that got hockey, 2 things. That the U.S. team winning the gold medal game got everybody in the U.S. jacked up about hockey, and Wayne Gretzky going down to L.A. And I really firmly believe that's why there's hockey now in Anaheim, San Jose, Florida, all those, Dallas. That got hockey on the map because there was really just the original 6 teams. It was the New York's, Boston's, a little bit of Minnie and Chicago. Hockey wasn't big in the U.S. And that 1980 really, with the U.S. team winning, it's probably a good thing they did. I think that changed the landscape of hockey in the U.S.
Do you think being on the ice with that Russian team and all the lore about that team kind of helped you later on, being like, we got to take some of these Russian players? Like, I was on the ice again; they're a different breed here.
Yeah, they know they were good. You're talking Makarov and Petrov, and so they were unbelievable. They were so good, and made you understand how good they were and how strong they were. They were great players. And they are today, all these players.
We were lucky enough to have on Matty Duchesne recently, and it was a great interview. And he went into, being bought out and the feelings and how like blessed he is to be in Dallas now. So take us through like you finding out Nashville was buying him out. How did you immediately know I want to bring this guy in, and how good has that worked out? I mean, what a season he's having right now for you guys.
Well, it's worked out great for us. I remember we're getting ready for July 1st, and we got our kind of laundry list. We've got our lists there, and it's the night before. We're getting ready to get up early in the morning, and I got up early in the morning, get to the office, and boom, I started reading the headlines, and Matt Duchene's bought out. And all of a sudden, it changed our direction, which way we're going. I said, you know what, we got to dig in here. We got to see what the options are. So I called his representatives. Yes, it was true. He'd been bought out. I knew Matt had some interest in us. We talked to him about 5 years earlier. I think he was coming out of Ottawa. He was a free agent, and we had talked to him. He had talked about maybe wanting to come down. That's when he signed with Nashville, and we didn't have the cap room at the time to sign him, so he went to Nashville. So I knew there was some mutual interest there. I was fortunate with Team Canada. I worked the World Championships. I had him there on a team, and got to know him while there, liked him as a player. His skill level's off the charts. And so I had a relationship a little bit through Team Canada with them. So made the call, and even a little bit more relationship when I was talking about Adirondack. It's funny how things all connect. Down in Adirondack, and Nill Brown was one of our coaches in Adirondack. Well, Nill Brown is Matt Duchene's uncle. And I remember Matt talking about how he came down to Adirondack. He was about 2 years old, and I remember him being on the ice skating and stuff. He was a little tight, skating on the ice and stuff. So we talked about that. So it's amazing all the different connections. And so I get back to July 1st, made the call. There was definitely mutual respect, and we had to figure things out cap wise, and we've been a factor of it ever since.
I'm wondering, going back to because things are really good for your team right now. It's a great club, good run last year, and I expect the same this year. But back to 2018, like, hockey the world got lit on fire when Jim Lights came out and kind of went at Seguin and Ben a little bit, and they were on these long-term deals. And how did you approach that? Like, did you read that and like find out the way we did, or did you know he was going to say something? And I guess you can laugh at it now with how good those guys have been. It sucks that Seguin got injured, but just take us through that day when it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I got the fire extinguisher out, and I got a great relationship with Jim. Jim and I go back to Detroit days. It's more really? Connections. Detroit used to be the president of Detroit Red Wings. So Jimmy was married to Denise Illich, and Denise is one of the Illich daughters and stuff. And so he was the president. So I got to know him then. Actually, Jimmy Lights, getting off the topic here, Jimmy Lights was the guy that brought over Klima and Fedorov. He's the guy that got those guys. He's got, if you ever get a chance, read the book.
No way.
He's the one that got Klima across the border in a car in a hidden gas tank type of compartment. And he's the guy that got Fedorov over.
Was that during like World Juniors or something?
I think he lured him with Anna Kournikova.
Yeah. It was World. Fedorov was World Juniors. Klima was just during the time of year he was in Czech Republic, and actually a great story. Klima jumped. He was in a team meal, and funny how different connect. So Yuri Hrdina scouts for us. Yuri was on that team, and they had a team meal after a game, and they each got one beer, and they're having the meal, and they looked, and there's one beer left, and they said, "Who in the heck? Who hasn't drank their beer?" They found out it was Peter Klima. He'd gone out the window in another room and was waiting. There's Jimmy Lights and a guy waiting for him to take him across the border. So it's amazing some of the stories on that. But let's get back to the other part about Jimmy Lights. That's the connection with Jimmy Lights anyways. And Jimmy, so that came out. I did not know it was going to happen.
Did Jamie Benn want to kill him? Like, Jamie Benn seems like a pretty hardcore, scary man.
Well, they weren't happy, and I don't blame them. And the other side is they weren't playing well. They knew it. And Jimmy was getting frustrated. Ownership was getting frustrated. So those things happen. I think, I've talked to Jimmy. He knows he probably went too far with it, but that's the emotions of our game, I guess. He was trying to get things rolling, and we dealt with it. I had a good conversation with both players. They understood, and they knew they weren't playing well, but they handled it well. Jimmy handled it well, and we've all kissed and made up.
I was going to ask you, like, obviously you can't say recent stuff, but is there any, big trades maybe from your Detroit days that, fell through last minute that you thought were going to be a monster deal, or even something that happened recently too?
Well, the big trade for us, I remember, was Chris Chelios. That was a big deal. And that was a tough one because Chris, he'd been in Montreal. He's a local Chicago guy. Now he goes to Chicago Blackhawks. And, Chris, he wanted to be a Chicago Blackhawk for life. And so they were starting to go downhill, Chicago. So we called, see if he's interested in coming to us, talk to Chicago. They talked to Chris, and at first he didn't want to do it. And then he kind of said, you know what? I'm not going to win here in Chicago. They were on the downside. So he said, you know what? Maybe I got interest. Now we had to get the deal done, and we had to re-sign him. And I just remember that it was and we had to convince the Illiches too to get on board. It was going to be a financial obligation. I had to convince them to do it, and it was I think it was 2 draft picks and another guy. I think it was Anders Eriksson, who was a first round pick, and something else went to him. So it was a big cost. And Chris wasn't 28 at the time. I think Chris might have been, he's probably
46.
Probably 50 at the time, but it said he was 35. But I think he was about 35, 36. So here we're making a commitment to a guy, 3-year, I think it was a 3-year deal we signed him to, giving up all these picks. If this doesn't work out, this is a disaster. Well, history has shown it was one of the best things we ever did. Amazing individual, Chris. I got so much respect for him. People have heard the stories. Chris enjoyed life. He enjoys life, still does. But I'd come to the rink at 6 in the morning, and guess who was in the gym working out? Chris Chelios. And I remember losing in the playoffs, Pittsburgh. We beat Pittsburgh the first year, back-to-back finals against Pittsburgh. Won the first year, second year we lost. Everybody's decimated. It was game 7. Nick Lidstrom had the one shot. Fleury made the great save with about 20 seconds to go. We lost game 7. And I came to the rink the next day. Everybody's just down. I walk in there, and guess what? Who's in the gym again? Chris Chelios. It's 7 in the morning.
After the playoffs?
After the playoffs. He's in there working out. And you hear the stories. I still tell people the stories about, I remember coming into our dressing room or workout room, and the carpenter is cutting a hole in the sauna. And I said, what are you doing cutting a hole in the sauna? He said, I got to put a TV in here. He said, well, what are you putting a TV in the sauna for? Well, Chris Chelios puts a bike in the sauna, and he'll go in there, ride for an hour in the sauna. He wanted a TV in there while he's riding. And so we put a TV in the sauna for Chris Chelios, but he puts a stationary bike in the sauna, rides it for 45 minutes to an hour.
He's
an amazing, but a great guy. Just,
oh yeah.
He would grab scouts. We'd have exhibition games and fly back home after a game, and he'd grab the scouts, wouldn't tell us management, wouldn't tell the players, bring the scouts. He had a Chelly's bar just by the baseball stadium. He'd have Bob Seger or somebody in there with him, and they'd go sit there and play at 2 in the morning playing songs in that. Like, he just, an amazing individual, legend. Great man. And I got so much respect for him and his family. Just a good person.
I want to go back to Fedorov quick. Like, was that your first time ever experienced? He was kind of like an international superstar. Like, I joked about the Anna Kournikova thing, but my understanding, he was cruising around in Ferraris, getting speeding tickets. Like, was that the first time you'd ever experienced a player of that kind of stardom, and who also maybe brought that off the ice? Not your prototypical hockey player, I guess.
Yeah, he was one. Yeah, that was him. He had the flair to him. Flair on the ice and flair off the ice. He did. He had high-end cars in that. Like you see, he had the Ferraris, and that's how he lived his life. And no secret about Anna Kournikova, dating her and that. But also interesting, a real quiet guy when you got to know him. He had this flair to him, but when you really got to know him and sit down with him for a lunch or something, really a quiet, humble guy. And it was just kind of a little bit of his makeup coming from Russia, kind of what he'd created or around him he'd created. But what a player. Could he skate and handle a puck? I remember the one year, Scotty, Scotty played him on defense for half the year. Our defense was a little bit weak, and he said, I'm going to put Fedorov back there. And he'd go back there. And back in those days, that's when the icing, you couldn't ice the puck back then, 2-line pass and all that. And so everybody had that neutral zone trap set up. Well, Fedorov, he just tic-tacked through there. He had no problem. He broke that trap down like it was nothing to it going through pylons. And he was an amazing player. Play forward, play defense, anywhere you wanted to.
Could you see him as an NHL head coach?
That I did not see. Yeah. I know he's coached in Russia and done a great job. He's been coach of the year over there. I did not see that, but he's done a great job. I've been over there and talked to him and seen him and stuff, and he loves it. He's got a passion for it. And like I said, we all got different paths, and he's found his path.
Do you think that would transition over to the NHL? Do you think you could see him behind the bench of an NHL team?
I do now. Yeah. Now after seeing what he's done in Russia. Yeah. Yeah. He's done a great job. And, it's all about the passion he's got. He's adjusted. He's, it's a work ethic now too. You go from being a player and coming practicing for 2 hours and going home. Now you're a coach and you're there for 6-7 hours a day. And he does that. He puts in the time. So good for him.
What was it like negotiating? And I know it was Kenny Holland, but yourself with Pavel Datsyuk. And like Brett Hull's talked a lot about one of the best players he's ever seen. And like I've talked about seeing him off the ice. You're like, who is this guy? And he's just like bent over. But as a guy and negotiating with him, was it easy and simple? And I guess watching him play night in and night out, you must have been just as amazed as anyone else.
Well, Pavel's a great player and actually a better person. He's one of the most humble people I know, and a good family man. He's unbelievable. Got to know him. I was, one of the guys that was Håkan Andersson, and then we drafted him, brought him over, and he was I remember picking him up at the airport with my 2 kids, didn't speak any English, and we built a great relationship and still are today. We still keep in touch, and just a great man. But he was tough. He knew what he wanted. In negotiations, he was tough. He knew what he wanted, but once the negotiations were over with, he moved on, and it's time to go play. I'll tell a little story about, he held out a little bit in one of the training camps. And so he came in later to training camp. We finally got him signed. It was a battle. I talked about those tough negotiations. So he's got to get his medical done. So our team doctor's got to do the medical and stuff. And he puts the stethoscope on his heart to listen to it. And Pavel says, "What do you hear, Doc?" And the doc says, "Well, it's beating pretty good." He said, No, you hear ching, 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 ching.
Oh, yes. That's
Pavel's sense of humor. That's Pavel Datsyuk. He had one of the best sense of humor. He still does. Just a great sense of humor, and just a good man. But that's who he was. He had the best one-liners going. He would. I love to watch him around the media. He'd come in the media, come in to get him and stuff. They'd be all around him and stuff. And he wouldn't understand a word of English. No understand. And then he'd walk out of the room and he'd start blabbing to the players. As good at English as anybody.
Oh, yeah. Typical Russians. Malkin was the same. Hey, you got to dump it in. You can't try to go one-on-one against a guy. Me no speak English.
Yeah, no
it's
speak English.
Yeah,
so he was
money
great
related
at
or car related. He's fluent.
Yeah.
To transition it back to Dallas, like, what do you think this team needs in order to get over the hump? Like, the West is just so tight. Like, what do you think this team needs in order to get the job done?
Well, I'm going to be patient here. I got to be careful. People always hear you'd like to get things done earlier. I think we'd all like to, but right now the market's not dictating that. You look at the Eastern standings, and you got 6 or 7 teams are pretty well cemented in. You got another 6 or 7 teams that are all within 4 points of each other. So in the past, a lot of those teams would be sellers. You'd be talking to them right now. They might be buyers, those teams right now. They're for these teams that haven't been in the playoffs for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, to make the playoffs is so important. And these teams are playing well. You're talking about the Montreals, the Ottawas, the Detroits, the Phillies. These guys, they're in a battle. So that market right now is kind of standstill. Which way they're going to go, I don't know. So I don't know what the market is. I've got to wait. If I use my bullets up too early and all of a sudden I get 2 or 3 injuries 1st of March, I got nothing left to go get something I need. So we're going to be patient. We've been very fortunate. I talked about, we had 7 young kids, first-year guys in the lineup the other night. They're getting better. They're getting experience every night. It's the best thing for us. And So to get back to what I need, I think I need to add depth in both positions. I'd like to add a forward. If I can get a top 9 forward, 1 or 2 top 9 forwards, just to add some good depth. Can I add another defenseman? We'll wait and see where we are injury-wise. We just brought Liam Bischel up, he's a young Swiss kid. He's a first-round pick of ours 3 years ago. Been playing great for us. We brought him up for about 10 games, sent him back down just to get some more experience. He's coming back up now. He's 6'6" and really changes your back end quick. Pete and I want to get a good look at him now. Let's see where he's at. Has he taken that next step? If that happens, I get less worries on the back end. So I just want to add some depth. I'd like to add maybe a little bit of size. Now I say that I'm bringing Bischel in. He's 6'6". Mason Marchman's been injured for the last 6 weeks. He's coming back. He's 6'4". Rupe Hintz has been injured. He's coming back. He's 6'3". So your size changes kind of quick, but really, I guess to answer it, really that just adds some depth, top 9 forwards, and maybe on the defense, you can never have enough defensemen. But I need to wait until I get to end of February, 1st of March, see what our injury situation is.
You brought up Mason Marchman. I was actually going to ask about him. 3 years ago, you signed him. He spent a lot of time in the minors, including the East Coast Hockey League, wasn't drafted. And I think every good team has guys outperforming their contract, and he's making 4.5. It's wild. Did you know when you signed him, like, that this guy could be better than the deal we're getting him for, that what we're paying him? Because the skill with the puck, the size, he plays mean. It's like, I didn't even know that much about him, and he's come on these last 2 years in Dallas. Kind of crazy.
He's a great story, and he's a good story for younger players that either don't get drafted or get drafted late and got to spend time in the East Coast League and in the minors and work their way up. Has been his path. He hardly played junior hockey. He was playing the OHL, hardly played there. Really got a tryout, probably because of a little bit of his dad's name. Got a tryout with Toronto Maple Leafs. They bring him in, mentor him a little bit. We were fortunate to play against him. Our team down in Austin played in the finals against Toronto. The 1 year they beat us, but he was involved there and he played well. Then Florida signs him. They actually trade for him. He's in part of a trade and he ends up signing in Florida for a couple of years and then became a free agent. And we had a good rapport. Steve Spott knew him well. Pete knows him well. I played with his dad, actually. I'm aging myself now. I played with his dad way back in Winnipeg. He was the first round pick of Winnipeg. So knew a little bit about him, but he's come in, and got to give credit to the player. He's developed his skills. He's always had the size. His skating's got better. He's got great hands for a big man, great hands. And he's learned to manage his game. He's always lived on the edge a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. You need that on your team. But sometimes he's on the edge too far the wrong way. He's managed to bring that back to where it should be. And he's a tough guy to play against. And when we started the year, it was Duchesne, Sagan, and him. Might have been one of the best lines in the league. They were unbelievable. Unfortunately, Sagan got hurt, and then Marchman got hurt. But they've been a real good combination for us.
Well, it's time for the Roback last question. Use code Chiclets at roback.com for 20% off your first purchase. That's CHICLETS on RHOBACK.com. 20% off all hoodies, joggers, and more with code Chiclets. Jim, my last thing for you is, all those years in Detroit, you're a part of this team that's building this dynasty. And I think people always wondered, like, how has he not been given a GM job yet? Like, it took a while. And now you've been in Dallas 13 years, but were you ever wondering, like, when am I going to get the call to be a GM? Because I've done a lot in Detroit with the help of all these guys, but was it longer than you thought you'd have to wait to be the head honcho?
When you look back, maybe I interviewed for a couple jobs. And, when you're younger, I look back, and this is good for now that I'm an older guy. It's the old wisdom story type of thing. Here I go. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me, not getting those jobs.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't ready. I look back now, and those jobs ended up being disasters for the guys that took them. And I'm sitting there saying that could have been me, and I might have been out of the business. And so in the end, I was probably the best thing for me. I was fortunate, great ownership in Detroit. They didn't want me to leave. We had a good thing going there. Why leave type of thing. And Ilitch is compensating me very, very well. We were winning. And I get back to, I was fortunate all those years, the people I was around and what I learned from. So I knew my time was going to come. A little bit, it was a family thing. I had young kids. My wife had some health issues. And so it's kind of like, you know what, when you're a player, your wife's got to follow you everywhere. Now I'm still in the business, and I'm sitting there saying, you know what, she sacrificed for me. I think I need to be a little bit considerate of her too, which as a family we did. And but then this opportunity came along. She's the one that said, we got to go. I was sitting there saying, Becky, I don't know if my wife's name is Becky. I'm like, I don't know if we should be going. She said, we're going. Here we are. So
Wow.
got the blessing from her.
It's been an amazing career for you. I wish you all the luck and congrats on all your success. It's a really cool story, and people speak so highly of you. I could see why. So thanks for coming on the show, and good luck the rest of the season.
Yeah, guys, it's a pleasure being with you guys, and appreciate everything you guys do.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate your time.
Thanks
Thank
a lot,
you.
Jim. Appreciate it.
Guys, before we go any further, I need to talk to you about DraftKings, and this ain't the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 59. Get in on the action at the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is so important to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Are you ready to place your first bet? If so, try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Chiclets, CHICLETS. That's code Chiclets for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. The crown is yours. Thank you so much to Jim Nill. Awesome interview. I hope everyone enjoyed that. I mean, it's just really cool that G just mentioned. He said, hey, I want to get a winger. I want to get a top 6 winger. I want to grab a defenseman. And boom, since we chatted with him last week, he went out and did that. And he did mention like how all these teams in the East are involved. And maybe he kind of had his eyes on like another guy, but he knew like, hey, all these teams aren't selling out East. So I'm going to go get Granlund, who's an awesome player, and get CeCe. So pretty cool. And he also talked a lot of, what did he say, Biz? The University of Detroit hockey?
Yeah, man, they had so many legends of the game. I mean, the people that he was surrounded with, like just him even talking about Datsuk and Zetterberg, Stevie Y's like dedication and willingness to win, the pain that he went through. You know, remember I think they tried to tell him, hey, take the Olympics off. And he's like, are you out of your fucking mind? Played the Olympics on one leg and then goes on to win a Stanley Cup. So just, I couldn't imagine being around those teams for that long and just absorbing that much hockey knowledge and being around those legends of the game. And kind of cool that Detroit, in the midst of since we've interviewed them, have really taken off as well since the coaching change.
Oh, they are buzzing. And the other thing he said too that was awesome is when we asked him about, you know, not becoming a GM for quite a long time, like him bringing up his family and how important it was. Like, that's so cool. Like, it's not always about like chasing what's better, chasing the dollar. Like, he was just very happy where he was. He loved where he was and he wanted to be there for his family. You don't hear that often in pro sports, but yeah, Biz, you bring up the Red Wings, and I guess, you know, for them to go out and make that move, right? And they get a new coach, and he comes in and he's talking, play hockey, guys, play hockey. And they have taken off. Like, dude, they just had a road trip. They beat Edmonton. They beat Vancouver. Like, it's just great hockey that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I know that, like, you saw the skill, and I didn't know Lucas Raymond was this good, and Dylan Larkin has been an absolute steal. His contract, Biz, the fact we spent a couple episodes before he signed that deal, like, talking about what he's worth, like, he's worth way more than what he signed for. He ended up looking like it's going to be a great bargain, but I think Seider and Edvinsson and the way Lyon and Talbot have both played in a tandem, I think that might be a worry going forward and into the playoffs. But right now, they are proving a lot of people wrong who wrote them off as the season began and got into the middle of the year.
Jans, I was pretty critical of their secondary scoring last time we had a chance to talk to them. I think that was around the time they made the coaching change. And since then, they've had a few guys come on the scene, like that Casper kid's pretty nasty and that Bergeron kid. So the fact that they have these kids starting to come in and contribute offensively, taking a little bit of pressure off those big guys that we've talked about who have been lugging the mail there a long time. But you're starting to see it come through. And how fitting at the fact when they make that coaching change, Stevie Y does the press conference and he's like, listen, like I get that this is taking a little bit longer. Now all of a sudden you're seeing the momentum starting to build, right? And you just mentioned the cap and these contracts. Like there's a lot of positive things happening in Hockey Town right now, Shandel.
Yeah, I still think of those young guys like Sider and Raymond as young bucks. Like they're still getting their feet wet in the league, and I think what they've done this year is proving why they got those contracts. You look at the minutes, the last 6 games. I think Sider's played either 25 minutes or above every single game and just lugging the mail for them and just being that horse that you need on the back end to win games. Plus player in their last 6 games in their win streak. And then Lucas Raymond, same thing. He's been on a heater playing tons of minutes. So I think when you look at a team like that and they're young guys, when they start to play more minutes, that just means they're getting more trust in their coach and their GM and the other players, because you can't lean strictly on Larkin and Kane and your veteran guys all year. You need those young guys to come up, and just because they're making that big money doesn't mean that they're going to do it every game. But they're finding their stride in this league, and I'm going to say watch out for those two, because I think what really sticks out for me is the minutes played by them, and that's just we all know how it is. The more you play, that just means the coaches are trusting you, your teammates are trusting you, and you're getting out there, almost every other shift and putting in the work. But what you touched on a little bit with the goaltending, and you think back a couple of years ago when Florida needed to, win some games to get back in, and the Lion King came in and won them games to get in, and I think he might have even started the playoffs for them, right?
He did.
Against the Bruins, yeah.
He did.
And then Bob took over, and then I played with Talbs in New York in the year that we won the President's Trophy. Hank got hurt, and Talbs came in. He was unbelievable, and there was kind of some talks like, do we just stick with Talbs here? But obviously, when you have a Hall of Fame goalie in the waiting to get his turn again, you're going to give it to him. But I think 2 capable guys that can get you wins. Talbs, I think, has won 4 games in the last 6, and Lions won 2. So you put that duo together, you're gonna give yourself an opportunity to win every night.
They were pretty respectable defensively with Lalonde, but ever since McClellan's took it over, and you go back to his comments about just play. It seems like the offense is a little bit more free flowing, so kind of freeing them up from a win category. But I looked before the pod. I think both guys are over a 9-10 save percentage and just around a 2.5 goals against. So to have a 1-2 punch that's putting those type of numbers up, giving them a chance to win every night.
I think Sider too, like you're looking at one of the best young defensemen in the league, and what he's doing responsibility wise, he's on pace for 50 points. I mean, like this guy, he's a monster. He can skate. He's mean. He is the complete package. Still remember when he was drafted, I think a lot of people were like, who's this? What is this pick? And holy shit, is this guy going to be a force for a long time? I think the bad news, Petrie's out 4 to 6 weeks. That sucks, right? A guy who could, he's older, but he could still move. He could still play big minutes. The best news out of Detroit recently, though, for me is Dominic Shine getting called up. I don't know if you guys saw this, but kid from Detroit. He's 31 years old. Played 4 years at Northern Michigan, and the past 9 seasons he was on the Grand Rapids Griffins, and he got called up to play for his hometown team at 31. Like that is like so sick. I mean, dude, you play 6-7 years for the same team in the AHL. I don't know the odds, I don't know the math, but the chance of making the NHL is just really, really small. And he stuck with Grand Rapids 9 years, then ends up being up with Detroit as a local Detroit kid. Awesome story there. So very happy for him. Congratulations on making it to the National League.
One of the first guys to play his first game and have a bunch of kids there. His whole family.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he had like 2 kids
He's
on the glass.
glass and
Grandkids are
warm-up.
there. It's like, whoa, holy shit.
Family reunion.
That was awesome. Good for him.
Before we move on, and we talked about JT at the beginning of the podcast, Grinnell reminded us of a story that you told us when we were in Orlando about you fucking around with JT Miller in his car.
Yeah, the porta potty we used to call his car. He had like a Durango, this guy, but just he was a true hillbilly when he came into the league.
Those are brutal.
Horrible. Yeah. Substitute teacher card. But it was the year-end meetings, and you know how it goes. Like the names on the list is usually by games played. And I was probably at the time, say like 7th or 8th on the list. I get to the rink and like Rick Nash, Marty St. Louis, they're all waiting outside the GM's office. I'm like, why aren't you guys in there? Like, oh, Millsy's in there. And he was a rookie, but he was like, I had to go home. So his car was running in the parking lot. So I jumped in the car, packed to the gills with all of his stuff. He was ready to go home. Get in his car, drive it down the street, leave it on the road, and Hazy comes and picks me up. Hazy comes and picks me up, drives me back. So we go into the. He comes out of his meeting hoping to get on the road, get back to East Palestine, Ohio, and he was like, "Where the hell, dude? Where's my car?" And then it delayed him a few hours, so he learned his lesson.
Where's he from in Ohio?
East Palestine, Ohio.
Oh, I thought you were just fucking joking. Like call it like Palestine. Like it was like that rough a shape. I didn't know that was an actual place. I was laughing when you said that. I thought you were fucking around with where he's from. I thought he was from Pennsylvania.
It's like on the border, I think.
Oh, okay. Actually, yeah, because where I was in Wheeling, West Virginia, like you could go and you could be in Pennsylvania and or Ohio within like a 20-minute radius or whatever it was.
What a dream.
Oh,
yeah, that's funny shit.
Just the
Springer Triangle.
Unreal states.
Guys, another team humming along and just spitting in our face, the New York Islanders. They cannot be stopped right now. They've won 7 in a row.
Well, they lost last night.
The New York D'Angelos.
They lost last night to end the streak.
Sorry. They had won 7 in a row. You're right. And not only did the streak end, but Barzal's out. Lower body injury. Kick in the dick for the Islanders, but kind of shocked to see them turn it around. Now, I think it's fair to say that most teams, you're not talking San Jose and Chicago, but even them sometimes, even the really bad teams, like you can go on little runs. Seems like everyone throughout the season has a little 10-game stretch where they're 8-2 or something like that. So I don't know what this means for the Islanders' future. The problem is, I think this is worst case scenario. If Lou's like, all right, we got a squad here, we got a chance. We're not trading Nelson. We're not trading anyone. It's like, no. And I wonder where Islanders fans maybe hop in on the comments on the YouTube. Like, where do you want this team to go? Like, are you down with like stripping this all down and figuring everything out, or are you like, let's give it one more go here with this older group? But this just makes these decisions for Lou Lamoriello that much tougher.
I kind of wish that he would keep him and go down with the ship. Like that's what I'm hoping happens. But I think if you're thinking from a futuristic standpoint, you can't keep him. You need to get assets, especially if Barzal's. How long is he out for? Week to week. I mean, if you're losing him for like 2-3 weeks, man, you got to imagine it gets a little gray again, and you got to get some stuff in return and look towards the future, man. Like even just watching this team play, like I think the Bruins are boring to watch now. Like they're even worse. You're just waiting for something to happen, and nothing ever does. Hey, congrats on a great run. I feel like Tony D. Anything? What you mean? Like you laughing at the 6-game stretch? Yeah, congrats. Get him a banner. But sometimes when you bring in a new guy like Tony D, I heard he's a hilarious locker room guy, so it provides a little bit more life. But you gotta look towards the future and just fucking implode this team and start getting more exciting hockey being played.
You think they would move Tony? I mean, he's played well. If Lou's thinking, if they're gonna trade Nelson, you might as well trade Tony to a contender, right?
I think that now that Islanders kind of absorb the media circus, or if that's what you even want to call it, I feel like there's a little bit of an uproar because it's Tony D. Now that that's over and done with, now it's a lot easier for them to move him or for a team to be more receptive to adding him to the roster. I was shocked that not more teams were willing to do it. But you think that since one team kind of took would you not agree with that? Like, I don't exactly think after the Mitchell Miller situation and some of the stuff the Bees have done in the past, they would have been the first guy to sign him even if they needed him. Like, you agree with what I'm saying here, Whitty?
Yeah, some teams do not want that the headache that comes with signing a guy who
like Vancouver needed a D. I don't think they were going to get Tony D. I don't think they were prepared for that.
No, that was not going to happen. I'm looking at the Islanders, like Horvat and Anders Lee lead the team in scoring with 39 points. It's like they've played 51 and 52 games. Like in current NHL, it's like your leading scorer
2006.
Welcome to the Big Deal Selects. That's where I'm at.
Noah Dobson needs a new contract. Like he had 70 points last year. He's got 25 this year. I don't know what. He's going to want a boatload of dough because he's going to finish this year around 40. And then you got 110 points the last 2 years. It's like he could ask for $9 million. So like
I think if you pay him $9 a year, you're out of your goddamn mind.
I know it's just
no disrespect to him, and I know it's an off year, and congrats on your 70 points, but that comes with a lot of liability, in my opinion, especially from this year's standpoint. Like defensively, it's been a bit of a clusterfuck. At least at the start of the year, it was.
God, their leading scorers ages: Horvat 29, Anders Lee 34, Palmieri 33, Nelson 32. That's Simone Holstrom or whatever. He's 23, but then JG Pajot 31. It's an old club there, boys. It's an absolute old club there. Like these guys, they're going back to the cellar, having a whiskey, and just like talking about all their kids and shit. It's a little different, being around the Islanders, an old team. But shout out New York, you've played well. You've played well ever since we chirped your building being half empty. Biz mentioned the possibility, and I think this would be fantastic, of a Battle of Ontario, and that's because the Ottawa Senators, guys, holy shit. Actually, before we get into Ottawa, they put a beatdown on Minnesota, shellacking, 6-0. Ryan Hartman, I think he might have an in-person hearing. Check that, G. He slammed, he pushed Stutzel's head into the ground off of a face-off. Did you see the play, Biz or Keith?
No.
Okay, so I was looking for opinion. Gee, maybe send them the video. I've been reading like the league's gonna throw the book at him. I guess it does look like Dirty's pushing his head down, but like I don't know. I didn't think like right when I saw it. Yeah, you got an in-person hearing. I didn't think when I saw it like holy shit, that's a 7-game suspension. But it sounds like everything I'm reading, he's gonna get a long suspension. Wondering what you guys think about that. But getting to Ottawa, 7-2-1 in their last 10, pounded the Wild, like I said, and the team actually announced next year they're doing 2 preseason games in Quebec. And I know. Michael
Andlauer's having a difficult time with the government right now and solidifying.
I think these are threats, Biz. I think they're kind of like
tariff threats?
Let's hope not. Fuck, these tariffs. Holy shit. What the fuck, Trump? What are you doing, buddy? But Andlauer, he didn't close the door for more games in Quebec in the future, and their mascot was actually wearing a half Senators, half Nordiques jersey at the press conference. Senators fans were losing their mind. I think Sens fan to see the team right now sitting in a spot in the Atlantic, top 3 spot in the Atlantic, finally winning games. And
yeah,
I guess though, as the owner, you're not getting help with this new arena. It's almost like, hey, here's what I could do. Like I can move this team. I don't know if he actually could.
Hey, thanks for your patience, fan base, and thanks for driving 30 minutes out to Canada. We're gonna get you the half and half jersey on our mascot as a thank you. That's a kick in the dick. And this comes like a week after the Toronto Maple Leafs fans sold out your lower bowl in Canada. So tough times and a bit of a distraction off the ice per se, considering what they got going on the ice. But listen, if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, you just have to be thrilled that you're back in the playoff mix and not even a wild card right now. Like you're top 3 in the fucking division and looking at a Battle of Ontario first round matchup, which would be fucking awesome. I would invite that because I feel like that would be probably a 6-game series that would favor the Toronto Maple Leafs. So
it won't be the Battle of Ontario though. They're playing the postseason in Quebec.
Imagine Quebec loses the Nordiques and the Avs just go on to win Stanley Cups and then got the Sens and then the Sens went on a run. Poor Senators fans. I know we're really reaching here, but you never know. And I get Andlauer because after playing against the Senators, you're driving out there in a cornfield. You're like, what am I doing? Like, get an arena downtown. Ottawa is a beautiful city. Get some life down there. Like, I don't know. Sens fans, let us know. Like, you want an arena downtown, correct?
Oh yeah, they need something down there.
How could you not? Like, it's the capital of Canada, baby. Get that place buzzing with an arena down there and a team that's on the rise. I think the craziest thing about what Ottawa's doing right now is that it's all without Linus Ullmark. This Levi Muralainen, this guy's on fire right now. 925 save percentage, 8-3-1, and a 199 goals against. It's crazy to see that they've been able to do this, but you know what? They've finally been healthy, right? Like, all these years, they've had all these different injuries, the Josh Norris injuries. It's just been so hard for them to get a fully healthy lineup. And then it seems like, knock on wood, they're getting lucky. One guy's going down now. Fuck, sorry, Nordique Senators. But Stützle's an unreal player. I mentioned his contract. What a joke that is. You got Batherson, severely underrated. I'm kind of just going down the points. Tkachuk went through that really dry spell. He's come out of that. It's an exciting team. And I think Jake Sanderson, fun as hell to watch him play. It's just finally nice to see Ottawa. Like, it was Biz. They might have been the captains of the Viagra Triangle.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you talked about health. I read off that stat at the beginning of the year. The amount of games that like Stützle, Batherson, and Norris had played together, their winning percentage was through the roof. But the problem is not all of them, all three of them were healthy at the same time. So you just mentioned that mix. I think that with Shabbat having your love child now there and helping him out from an offensive standpoint has helped, it's relieved a little bit of pressure off of him. I don't think that Shabbat was that number one guy, and that's no disrespect to him. Like, that's a tough role. I think that's, like I said, helped alleviate a lot of that, not only offensive pressure from him, but just like from a matchup and having to play. So it's been Brady Tkachuk went on a bit of a dry spell there. He seems to look a little bit more like himself offensively. But yeah, this team was just poised to make a little bit of a run and finally get things clicking. And it seems like Travis Green has them playing the right way. I think that coaching staff's done a great job in getting them all on the same page, and you're seeing the result of it. Now, once they get Ullmark back, man, and if he's kicking,
I know, but what's so nice is like Ullmark, who's battled injuries in the past, like, you got no rush right now. Like, this kid is playing so good. It takes so much pressure off. I'm not going to say like the training staff, but the team as a whole to not be like, dude, we need you back. We need you back. We need you back. It's like, hey, get healthy. Then we can really ease you in with the way this kid's playing. They're going on the road now. They had some success at home. Like, you want to finish top 3 in the Atlantic. You want to be able to continue this. Like, go win some games on the road. You got to be able to perform when you're away from your building in beautiful Canada and those beautiful cornfields in that one Italian restaurant that we all had to go to. Great
Unreal.
spot. It was the only restaurant. And it was
DQ
awesome.
right across the parking lot.
I think they had Moxies too, didn't they?
Oh, no. Buddy, you were going there for the women. I mean, we're looking for a nice Italian meal. We're going to the strip mall in Canada, and we're walking across for a Blizzard after. Oreo Blizzard every single time. Although some people love the Reese's.
Hey, but
you never went to the Moxies, you fucking idiot.
I was the Italian place every time, baby. Every time, Biz. And
chicken parm as long as your arm.
What's that resort you stay at? It's like the one nice
Brook Street. Brook Street.
Oh, it's just all the parking
Nightmare
lots all
on
around
Brook
it.
Street.
They have 13,000 parking spots. There's like 6 cars that are there.
We didn't play. We played them in the playoffs in Pittsburgh. And like, remember, like Terry's like, hey, make sure you're staying around here. And it's like, where are we gonna go, bud? Like, we're not going anywhere. Like, this is the Brook Street Inn we're talking about. We played. What was the game we played? George LaRock bought the whole team on the PSPs. What was that game?
Oh, Call of Duty.
Oh my God.
So
hours
fun.
and hours and hours. Just a junkie for Call of Duty on the PSP. All-time move. George LaRock bought everyone. I think he bought like 15 PSPs in the game. So just battling that out.
He bought him with the money he won off JR for the lava cake bets. Were you around in AZ, Yans, when they were doing those?
Yeah. He used to race anyone, too. George LaRock, straight ahead. He would race anyone for any amount of money.
I took him down.
You did?
I took him down. But, buddy, if we had 5 more yards of ice, like, I could hear him coming like a buffalo behind me. I was like I got a big lead off the start, and then it was just, I was listening. Thank God. Terrian was out there at the end. He was like the final like line judge guy. And then
you won, and he's like, no, he won.
No, yeah. then I came in and I was like grabbing my quads. I'm like, how about these calves, boys? Couldn't even call it the correct muscle because I didn't have one.
Outside of your golf cart, Jans, did you ever have a teammate buy you a gift?
Yeah, actually, Cujo bought us all those PSPs probably around the same time, and we used to play on the plane. And then I got a watch for my 1000th game and the golf cart.
Holy shit, spoiled.
Jeez, that's nice. All biz.
But I will say that just to get back to Brady Tkachuk, like young guys take some notice of what he did when he was struggling a little bit. Did he stop running guys through the wall? No.
Nope.
Did he stop fighting? No.
Nope.
Did he bring the heat every game? Yes. And just what an ultimate teammate, a guy that is a captain through and through. And you look back at if they make the playoffs this year, you look back at his stretch of games where he wasn't playing as well as he thought or thought he could play, and you're like, you know what, Brady still brought 100% every single shift, and that's what leaders do, and that's why he's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, that's like people put such an emphasis on points, but like you said, like how can you make an impact when maybe that's not part of your game and that's lacking? And completely agree with you, Jans. And I'm looking forward to him and Matthew playing together at the Four Nations. Like, when's the last time Brady Tkachuk played meaningful games at the pro level? Never played a playoff game before, right?
Never.
Like,
Never.
And now he gets to fucking play with his brother and go against Team Canada. Billy G just did an interview recently. So
the Bash brothers.
The Bash brothers are back.
I was actually surprised. We'll get into that in a little bit. Brandon Saad, guys. I respect the hell out of this move. Doug Armstrong told him, hey, listen, you're going down to the minors and you're going to make $5 million down in the minors. And he said, please get rid of the contract. That's, guys, everyone listening, that's how bad the AHL is when you've been in the NHL that long. This guy's he's given back prorated $5 million the rest of the year to just not go down to the jungle. And I really respect it. I get St. Louis, like, not in the plans. We're going younger. They've been struggling lately too, but this guy said, no, I still think I have a lot of game. And he goes out and Vegas picks him up. After the contract was terminated, Vegas decides to sign him. And I think he's going to make a difference. I don't know where he'll fit in the lineup, but like that is, I mean, he's made a bunch of money, right? So it's not the end of the world, but I mean, most people, like, you're going down to the AHL and you're collecting your dough.
That's true cap circumcision. He literally cut it off.
Yeah, he cut off the paycheck.
That's true. That's the truest form of cap circumcision. So the Vegas Golden Knights back at it. I think he's just one of those guys when put with the right line, like it's like Verhaeghe, like streaky. Like he could be a guy in playoff who ends up having 10 goals for you.
I know.
Like and also one of those guys, it feels like with playing with the house's money, he's got 2 cups. He won 2 cups with Chicago.
2. Yep.
Like he's just like the moment's not too big for him. So it's almost like the game slows down for him in that situation. So this could end up paying huge dividends and not a big risk. So ballsy move by him to leave him a little bit of money on the table. But as you said, those soggy subs are not very good down there.
No, dude. You think of that 11 a.m. kids game where SpongeBob's, you're like, I ain't fucking going down there, boys. I ain't going down there.
Bring your pet parakeet to the game.
Oh, I just think for him, it's like it's been 10 years since he's won a cup. Obviously, he's won 2, and I think there's no amount of money that can, persuade you from not wanting to give yourself a chance to win. And I think he made it clear to them he wanted to go to a contender, and obviously he's a good guy, so they took care of him and were able to do what they did, and he gets to have a chance to win another cup. And I think it just goes to show you how much winning means to these guys in the league, where he's won 2 cups, but it's been 10 years, and he wants another one bad.
So how much did he leave on the table exactly, Whit? Like given the proration and what he's going to make.
So he signed 1.25 prorated. It was at 5.425. So I don't know.
At least $1.5 million.
Yeah, probably. G says via daily faceoff, he's playing on the third line with Brett Howden and Mark Stone.
Not bad.
The other thing is he had 26 goals last year. Like he's probably like, I'm not done here. And it goes back to the cap going up. Like they were trying to trade him for a long time, but at that salary, it couldn't get done. Like, that might change as the cap goes up and up, where, like, you can trade. That's just kind of what I'm saying. You're not talking numbers. You're not talking figuring out the contracts. It's just, we need this player. This player can help. So he made it happen on his own by sacrificing a bunch of dough. I'm sure if his wife does the finances, like the 2-week paycheck, she's like, what the fuck? What are you doing? He's like, don't worry, babe. I'm going to light it up in the playoffs. I'm going to make it all back in free agency.
Yeah.
See what happens for him. Before we go any further, guys, I need to talk to you about Game Time. Game Time, it's hockey season, and we can't wait to get out to some games coming up soon, and it's all because of the help of Game Time, the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. There's no feeling like seeing a breakaway goal in person, and Game Time can help. I want to see one at the Four Nations. I want to see Austin Matthews ripping down in Montreal and lighting up a Canadian goalie. USA wins. Canada loses in Canada, and I'll get to see it because of Game Time. We love Game Time, and with their brand new Game Time Picks features, they're making it even easier to get to a game. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets for an NHL or college hockey game near you. I was looking at tickets for the Four Nations coming up. $150 USA Canada. Unreal deal, all because of Game Time Picks. And all you got to do is pull up your chosen event on the Game Time app, turn on GT Picks setting at the top of the screen, or browse the best local Game Time Picks deals near you on your Game Time app homepage. What are you waiting for? I'm going to buy those USA Canada tickets right now with Game Time Picks. Take your guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Chiclets for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Chiclets for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. Guys, the Buffalo Sabres, watching Tage Thompson, their best player by 25 miles, get run over at center ice, and not one person doing anything.
Pathetic. It made me angry.
It actually, Keith sent it to the group. I wasn't watching the game, and I watched it. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm gonna make this perfectly clear. I hope that all the listeners know, like, I wasn't even close to a tough guy. Not even remotely close. But I think I had 5 or 6 fights, and every single one of them was after a player got buried. And I'm not trying to like call out guys on Buffalo. And Lindy Ruff after the game said there were guys that wanted to go at him right away. Like, he had the players' backs. But if you're the Buffalo Sabres sitting in dead last in the conference, and you got
for the last 20 years, for the last 20 years.
And Keith, you sent the clip. What did Tage Thompson do against Boston a few years ago?
During I think it was the COVID year. I think it was Casey Middlestat gets run by Kevin Miller, who is a killer. Kevin Miller was a tough.
He was a UFC fighter.
Yeah. I think he broke Joe Vitale's face. Right.
Yes.
Like, this kid is a bona fide killer, and Casey Middlestat, who was not the best player on their team, like Tage Thompson is, gets ran by Kevin Miller, and Tage Thompson sheds his mitts and gets beat up. Because that's what you do as a hockey player. Not one guy came to his aid. Not one guy. And I don't know if Lindy Ruff's lost his fastball a little bit, I appreciate him having the guys on his team's back, but someone has to do something. I don't care. And it's not like it was Kevin Miller who hit him. It was Stefan Noesen, who's, a hard-working, tough player, but he is not a killer. And, like, he's not a guy that is going to punch your face in. He's going to obviously answer the bell because of who he is, but it's not a guy, it's not Ryan Reeves running your best player where you're a little bit afraid to get in there. You have to get in when your best player is getting his head like almost amputated.
Doesn't even matter, right, Jans, if you saw the hit. Like,
it doesn't matter.
The craziest part about was, like, watching the clip, you just, like, whether it's right or wrong, you see big hits now, you see guys get jumped. Thompson is laying there crippled in a ball, and then you just see like Sabres players just like skating around. It's like, it was so wild to not see something happen immediately. Like, it's like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Like, just grab somebody, even if you don't see it.
I would have rather them go over to Thompson on the ice, like how little kids do, and like go around him and make sure he's okay, than what they did and just kind of circle around and do nothing. It was it honestly made me. I remember Shane Doan got hit by James Wisniewski. And
I was in that
skate,
game. I was in that
I
game.
had to
Pete.
skate 2 zones knowing I was going to get my head caved in by James Wisniewski, who's a lefty. I'm like, oh, well, you got to do it. Like, your best player gets taken advantage of. It's just, I didn't want to do it like you, Whit. I didn't want to fight, but it's just something you have to do. And the Buffalo Sabres haven't played a meaningful game in 20 years. It has to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere. And when your best player, like if I'm him, I'm like, oh, what is this organization doing? Like,
trade me right fucking now.
Yeah, does that make you want to stay there long term, Biz?
No, I mean, well, you just talked about that Wisniewski hit on Donor. I was losing it on the bench. I actually fought Peros the next shift just as a result because I was so angry and I needed to get it out. That's the type of lack of response that if I'm a season ticket holder of the Buffalo Sabres, I'm saying, fuck this, man. It's a broken culture. You're not even going to fight for your best fucking player when he gets laid out when you're sitting dead last in the are they dead last in the league or just in the East?
In the East.
World.
Just in the, yeah.
But you look at Vegas.
Your frustration is warranted, man. It was just like I watched the clip and like at first when people are trying to figure something out, like figure out who did it, maybe there's like a little bit of a pause. But even after that, man, there was just a lack of emotion. Everyone just standing on, everybody kind of just grabbing a guy, being like, all right, let's just drop the puck and get this one over
just
with.
end the season.
Fuck you.
But you look at Vegas and Petro gets buried by Cooley and Hag jumps in right away. That's a winning team. That's what winning teams do. In the history of this game, that is what winning teams do. And it has to start somewhere in Buffalo. And I'm sorry I'm so worked up about it, but I just hate to see when a young kid like that who is a franchise player and no one has his back. It's just it's sickening to me.
I know we always go back to Florida with these types of things, but could you imagine that happening on the Florida Panthers team? There'd be guys getting 10-game sussies because guys would be coming off the bench.
Kachuk would be taking his skate off and trying to slice him with it.
Hey, going back to Arizona when Radislav Kleza got lit up in preseason. I was fucking one leg over the board.
Jumped over the bench.
Max, Domi, get off the ice. And then I got a 10-gamer. It got reduced to 3 because but then again, Max did the right thing. Like he was coming back and then noticed that Kleza got blown up. So when I made eye contact that he was coming back, I jumped and then he looked and then just skated over. So we ended up having too many minutes. But that's
and
what
Max was 18
and 18 years old and probably had no pro fights under his belt. So just disgusting behavior from the Buffalo Sabres, making the headlines for all the wrong reasons once again.
The Buffalo Sabres are truly the like, if you want to talk about having relegation in the NHL, like it's the Buffalo Sabres. Like this is like that. Keith, you're right. That was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the final straw. Like this team, holy shit. At
they
least
can merge
go
them
out.
and the Islanders. They can merge the teams, make a competitive
and then
team.
move them to Quebec.
Bingo.
Bad news in Montreal, guys. They've lost 5 in a row, and they lost defenseman Caden Gooley. He got a lacerated quad, dude. Like, I don't know, freaky, fluky accident. It was surgically repaired, but he's going to be out quite a while. And the Canadians had that big push, but I was talking to our good friend Billy Ryan, scouts from Montreal, Keith and I, and he was up there. Teddy Purcell actually worked for the Canadians. So they were up there, and they were with Marty St. Louis and Gorton and Hughes. And St. Louis was telling Bill, like, I don't think people realize how good this Caden Gooley is. Like, he can shut guys down. He skates like the wind, can add a little offense. I actually asked Bill what he thought about a possible like comparison to Ryan McDonough. I think Ryan McDonough is more physical, but I think of Ryan McDonough as a shutdown D-man who could also add a little offense. So take away like the physicality Mack truck part of McDonough. I think Gooley's like that type of player. And when he went down, it's almost like I don't know if they can kind of sustain this push they'd been on. So that just sucks to see a young D-man. And it was a fluke injury too. I mean, you get cut in the quad. It's not even nothing you can do on that. I know guys wear the socks now and wear the wrist guards and everything. So that sucks. But
that's negative news for the Canadians. Some positive news for Canadians. They paused the tariffs for 30 days. I just got a text. So they've paused the tariffs. I know it has nothing to do with the Montreal Canadiens, but it does with all Canadians. So
I saw
just
that
want-
the Mexico one was paused. Like the fact we're talking about, but is the Canada one paused?
It's paused 30 days. So Pink Whitney will still be available at the LCBO as of tomorrow for the next 30 days.
I definitely don't support the tariffs. Don't really understand the going after Canada. Kind of think of U.S. Canada as like one big happy family.
Of course.
Don't love the tariffs
until the Four Nations, but you guys get the point.
This could add a little.
They've been booing the anthem.
I know they're pissed off. We're trying to
Oh, is that
fucking
why?
ruin them through their economy. I don't understand the Canadian tariffs. Let's
You
just
take
say
our
that.
lumber, you take our fresh water,
your
you take our
maple
hockey
syrup.
players.
I think we need oil from you guys. I'm guessing.
Yeah, we for whatever reason
thought
we're
we were all
producing
just
it, but
best
then yet
friends.
buying it from you. How the fuck does this all work?
So did I. I mean,
No idea.
we've been fighting together for years. This could add a little Four Nations. I mean, Montreal, goddamn, they're going to be crushing the anthem when we get up there for the Four
Oh
Nations.
yeah, wow! I never even thought of that. We're gonna be at that game, by the way, right?
We're going up there. We'll be up there. Our first game will be U.S.-Finland on the 13th, and then we'll be
Right.
at both games on the 15th. Very excited to get to Montreal. I've always said Montreal feels like you're in Europe. I don't think that's the craziest statement anyone's ever heard. It's probably been uttered millions of times. A beautiful city. And Four
Can't wait to
Nations
meet my
captains were
future
announced.
ex-wife.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You got a lot of those, buddy. Four Nations captains. No surprise at all. Sasha Barkov for Finland. Victor Hedman for Sweden. Totally makes sense. No surprise at all. Sidney Crosby for Canada. That was shocking. Couldn't believe that decision. And Austin Matthews for the United States. The only one where I'd say I kind of thought it would be Matthew Tkachuk. I don't know if you guys lean that way. Austin Matthews is the best player on the team. So if you want to go that route, I would say that all four of those players, Crosby, McDavid, and McKinnon has overtaken him, but Sid is Captain Canada. What did you think? Any surprise for you with Austin Matthews wearing the Seabiz?
Yeah, I figured he's wearing it in Toronto, the biggest market in the NHL. He can handle it with the Four Nations. But I would have been okay with Matthew or even Brady having it. I feel like Matthews isn't exactly the guy in the locker room who's like saying a lot, especially not as much as Matthew Tkachuk with behind the scenes and what we've seen with him in Florida. So I think that Matthew Tkachuk is a leader of men. Not saying that Austin Matthews isn't. I would say that maybe Matthew Tkachuk is a little bit more proven being a leader of men. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both great leaders. Obviously, two different. I mean, we've all played for some guys who lead by example and lead by vocal. I think Matthew does a little bit of both, but yeah, I have no problem with it. I think Matthew Tkachuk's one of those guys. He doesn't need a letter or a C
Right.
or an A to lead the way that he does. So I don't think there's any issue with any of those. I do. It seemed like every team had like two forwards and a D as their captain, which I like. And obviously, every guy on that team is on all those teams could be a captain of any team. So it's it's pretty much pick who you choose, and I think they all made the right decision.
Crazy to not see Nathan McKinnon with a letter on his shirt, but I understand Makar getting it, being one of the defensemen. Fenway Sports Group will put a minority stake in the Penguins on the market this week. Sources tell ESPN's Emily Kaplan and Kevin Weeks. Fenway Sports Group reportedly anticipates maintaining a controlling interest in the team. We actually talked about this in Orlando, how maybe they would sell the team after the next expansion fee comes in. Just kind of rumblings and rumors you hear. The Pens are in a world of hurt, boys. They are looking at a crazy next 10 years possibly.
If I'm Sid, I basically say, give me a percentage of the team or I'm not going to carry you into playoffs this year. Because that's what he's been fucking doing. I think he scored four games in a row now. He's just lighting the world on fire. The only reason they have a fucking chicken dick's chance of even sniffing playoffs. Do you think that there's a possibility that Sidney Crosby owns a piece of the Pittsburgh Penguins and maybe that's why he's not going anywhere?
I don't think currently he owns any of the Penguins. I would hope someday he does. If they didn't get him, they were probably moving.
Yeah.
He literally saved the entire franchise. You'd think at the end, it's like, hey, here, take 5%. I don't know how it's going to work, but I just know that if they're looking to sell part of it now, what's stopping them from selling the rest of it in a few years? I don't know. It's just bizarre, the whole thing, how they got them and then everything that's happened there. Although
I think it was horrible timing for them to buy that team and at what price they did it for. Like I didn't understand the timing. You're you're about to hit the dog days. Like why do it then?
I know. Very confusing. Jonathan Quick, guys, is a for sure Hall of Famer. And he notched his 400th win. I believe he's one of 14 goalies and the first ever American goalie to get to 400 wins. And it was cool. He did it in New York in an enormous win for those guys on a back-to-back after playing in Boston against Vegas. He was lights out. And I think the celebration, guys ran over to him and jumped on him. But the career this guy's had, it's just been so sick. And people thought like he was done, right? The trade to Columbus for 2 seconds and then to Vegas and then he signs with New York and he's been awesome since he got there. To see him get that 400th win, I was so happy for him.
Yeah, I had the chance to play against him in high school. He beat us in the finals one year, shut us out. You knew from a young age, that's what, 17, 18 years old. You knew from a young age he was going to be who he is. And I think he's lived up to it. And I think he's done it his way too. Like the way that he plays, the saves that he makes, the character that he is amazing. But I saw something last night, and you never really talk about hockey IQ with goalies. And end of the game last night, they're up by, I think they were up by one. No, they were up by 2. Shot from the point in the middle of the ice. So he saved it in the middle of his crease. But as he saved it, he pushes himself over to the left because he knows JT Miller's out there to take the draw on his strong hand side. So just little things like that goalies can provide for your team. And you don't think of a hockey IQ with goalies, but to last as long as he has, and to play a position where it demands so much on your body, and what he's been able to do is a true testament of his character and his hard work. And obviously a for sure Hall of Famer, and hopefully he has much more success. And I just, like Whit said in the chat, I just want a couple of slices of his pizza.
I know.
Johnny's a pizza. Johnny. And like you always hope a guy who's done did what he did, even like before he got traded, like he gets to go out on his own terms. And then he got pigeon tossed, called off the bus. I think they were in Winnipeg when it happened, when he got moved on from LA. He goes to Columbus and then a quick turnaround. He gets to win that cup. And especially after dealing with all those like injuries and hip surgeries and, maybe having to play, like not like play the way that he used to. Remember how he used to get so low when he won the Vezina? Like he was fucking unbeatable those years. We played them in the Western Conference Finals, Jans. But to him to kind of get back to that level of play and then to get to go back to near his hometown in Connecticut, like it's just awesome to see that the way that he was able to kind of turn it all around from that point when he got pigeon tossed off the bus to end up getting to where he is now. So just an incredible guy, so well liked. And along with doing all that, also now helping mentor other guys, whether it was Aiden Hill, when I remember in one of those finals games, he let in a bad goal. I think actually it was in the Western Conference Finals. It might've been against Dallas. And I heard the story of him pulling Aiden Hill aside. He's like, don't fucking worry about that. Let that shit go. And for a younger goalie to have a guy of that status to lean on and to be a mentor, just like an all-time guy, and like you said, a Hall of Famer, no doubt.
And yeah, I think there was a time when a lot of people thought he might not get to 400 based on like how it was ending in LA, and then he goes to Vegas. It's like, I don't know if he's ever going to get there. So congrats to him. And you talk about being a mentor at the end of your career, like what Marc-Andre Fleury has done for a long time now, not being like the number one guy he was for so long. And then to see it all come to a head in his last game in the province of Quebec till he signs with the Senators and then plays for the Quebec Senators. It was a clinic, dude. Like I turned on the game and he was standing on his head. I think it was 2-0. He made this ridiculous kick save. Wild go down the other end, make it 3-0. The crowd went amazing. The crowd was going nuts. And then also it was cool to see all the Montreal Canadiens players stayed on the ice after, shook his hand, and just I saw Alan Walsh, his agent, after he tweeted out a picture. He's like, he's got to be like 11 years old. He's got his glasses on and he's just like posing in his goalie pose. And just to think like what he's done in his career, and for him, Merle's called it on game notes. That's what's crazy. Merle's called it shutout for his last game in Montreal, and he ends up pulling it off. Just a storybook ending for him in his home province.
I think we learned everything we needed to know about Marc-Andre Fleury with the Matt Murray situation in Pittsburgh when he brought them to the Eastern Conference Finals against Ottawa and handed off the reins and just continued to be an unreal supportive teammate despite getting a yank. And he was playing great up until that point, and just an all-time guy, just like we talked about Quickie, and just an incredible ambassador to the game of hockey. The way that even in the back half of his career, how he's like taken all the interviews and had fun with it, and the fun, silly pads, the prank. So I don't know how somebody is that good for that long and stays that focused when having that much fun off the ice with the pranking and all the craziness. So just the Flower, all-time good. They should induct those guys at the same time. Like do like a special goalie year when these guys retire.
Would they have to retire at the same time, right?
I think they. Maybe Quick keeps playing, but Fleury's
signed.
I think he might play one more year.
I thought Quickie signed one more year, but I could be wrong.
Wow, he's still going. Which is like I try to. I think he's had like one or two hip or surgeries, like lower body.
I think every goalie gets. It's like Tommy John for pitchers.
Especially if you're playing as athletic the way that, like, he relied more on his athleticism than he probably did like structure from a goalie standpoint, at least early in his career. I don't know enough about goaltending to know how they've transformed their game. I would imagine he's working with that Benoit Allaire, who is the goalie coach for the Rangers. So
Benny.
Maybe he's changed stuff, but yeah, those guys are some of the most athletic goalies to ever do it and transform the game.
I just think Flower being a first overall pick, and the pressure that comes with that, and what he brought to the Penguins and Team Canada and every fan in the NHL, because you don't really see a lot of NHL guys get the swan songs that he's getting from pretty much every arena, and he deserves every single second of it. I'm sure he hates all of it. Like, he had his mask on. I'm sure he was teary-eyed, and I'm sure it meant a lot to him, but I don't think hockey players are really built like that. Like, he just wanted to play his game, but he deserves everything he's getting because of what he's done. Help promote this game and get the Cap to 117 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Quick actually is a UFA at the end of the year. If Quick does retire, I think 3 years from now you could see him going in the same class. I don't know. Have two goalies ever gone in the same year? Maybe
I want to say the year they did Lundqvist, they had Mike Vernon win in.
So that was same season?
I think that
was Luongo. Maybe it was Luongo and Vernon.
Okay. Yeah, G can look that up while we.
It was definitely two goals.
So my question, if it ever happened like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah. Stay hot.
Might have happened this year.
Utah, boys, they announced the next step in its pursuit of a nickname. The fans will now vote on the 3 finalists. Utah Hockey Club, please no, the current name. I don't
What?
hate it. I just don't. No, I don't. When all these soccer teams have that, I get it. When you're the only team called the Utah Hockey Club, I don't like it. Especially
differentiate yourself. That's the whole point. I think that they need to stick with it.
I think so. The other one is the Utah Mammoth or the Utah Outlaws. It was the Wasatch. I got no clue what a Wasatch is.
It's a mountain range, from my understanding.
Oh,
like it's a big mountain range there or something. I hiked it one time.
I think the Mammoth and Biz, those possible jerseys that you retweeted, the Mammoth sound awesome.
I think that they should have a creature of some sort like that as their mascot. I think they should remain as the Utah Hockey Club. That's how they came in. They are very focused on growing grassroots. I think it's cool because you talked about all those soccer teams and how like they have programs where like, don't they have like under 10, under 12, under 14, and like to grow the game from a new place that there's never been NHL hockey. Why not have that? And then do a third jersey with that Mammoth logo. And then that's your mascot. So you're technically like the Mammoth, or because they can't say Yeti now, but that would be your mascot and what you're known for. But the Utah Hockey Club has a nice ring to it, in my opinion. For some, It might be too vanilla. They don't like the soccer type reference and the fact that they all do it. But I think Utah Hockey Club needs to be the name. Stick with it.
They did just release the logos as well as to which each team would be, Biz. And if it was Utah Hockey Club, it would be very similar to what you just said. It would be a Utah HC with a logo like that, but it would be the Yeti logo I think they originally had before.
I like that.
It's a really cool logo.
I like the Yeti logo better.
You could tell they went all in on this Yeti logo because it's a sick logo.
So use that as your third jersey, but keep the Utah.
What, and everyone calls them the Yeti? Like,
Yeah.
That's where you can maybe get away with it.
Yeah.
As like similar like to the mascot, but I don't know. It kind of sucks. I thought that Utah Yeti was the name.
okay, so I don't like Utah Hockey Club. I don't dislike that. I just don't like seeing Utah HC. Like the HC for me, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. Like Utah Hockey Club, yeah, that sounds pretty legit, but it'll always be HC. You'll see that like on the standings and stuff. And I don't know, I think the Mammoth are kind of cool, but yeah, the original, the Yeti logo that they wanted, that would be sweet. I don't know, we'll see what happens. I really, really want to get to a game out there though. Looks awesome, especially when that rink has all their, what do they call it?
Booze, their beer, their soda pop, their swingers.
Guys,
I'm trying
Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he said that he's open to the NBA reducing quarters to 10 minutes and says that the viewer's attention span is more suited for a 2-hour experience. Baseball has gone to the pitch clock to speed up their games. Should the NHL take steps in somehow?
Yes, they should. And I've said it before, and if they don't do it, they're fucking idiots. Enough with the TV timeouts. Reduce them. I think right now they have 3 TV timeouts during a period.
Yep.
Sometimes the way they happen is where you'll have one, and then a minute and a half later, they'll have another whistle, and then they'll go to another TV timeout. It's brutal. It's like going to an NFL game. So but the commercials, the amount of money you make. Buddy, make the intermissions a little bit longer. You have a little bit longer to grab a beer. And then when the game is on and it starts, you're fucking dialed in and it's moving. And then some other people make the argument like, oh, we don't come to watch the fourth liners. That gives the top liners a little bit more time to get rest. Shut the fuck up. Let's go here. Let's
That's coming from a fourth liner.
It's a fourth. You fucking ass. Hey, you watch your goddamn mouth.
Rule change is only 3 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Biz, what about they? Have you seen how much snow they pick up on those timeouts?
So do it. You can't do it with 2. You can't do it with 2. You need 3.
So you're saying so right now it's at the 14-minute whistle, the 10-minute whistle, and the 6-minute whistle. Maybe at like 14 and 8.
I think you do one at the 13-minute mark and one at the 7-minute mark.
Okay,
That's
but
it.
I don't know. Okay, so if you want to keep the same amount of ads in the 2 and then just lengthen the intermission, I don't think we're talking about a quicker game.
You're talking about the attention span of when the action is on. That's it. That's what I'm trying to do here. And we're talking about subbing out 3 minutes of people's time and then moving it to the intermission. Can I get a hand count for you people listening? If you're driving right now, make sure you keep 2 hands on the steering wheel. But how many of you go for a beer or something during the intermission, and by the time you get back to your seats, there's been a few minutes that have gone by in the period? You need a little extra time between periods to get your snacks and your booze. Because some of these people who are working the canteens, it's their part-time job. They're not necessarily that fast. I wish that they were faster. They had a faster system. Get them in and out. They don't. It's slow sometimes.
They got to ID everyone. They're IDing like 70-year-old
It's slow.
guys.
It's a brutal process. So give them an extra 2-3 minutes during the intermission. And when the puck drops for the period, enough with these lengthy timeouts. I don't want to see this girl with an unreal tushy, although she's an ankle bender out there clearing the snow. I don't care.
All right. I could
Unless
see that.
it's Bonnie Blue.
Isn't there enough advertisement on the boards and on the ice and on the glass that they don't even need an intermission?
I don't know, guys. We're talking about a $117 million cap in 3 years, and I think it has something to do with these TV ads.
You know
I
what
think
I
it
don't,
does.
but Biz, I don't like is, which I didn't realize it. And I went to a Bruins game when I was home for Thanksgiving. Pittsburgh was playing, so went to watch Hazy. And you can't go to your seat when the play's going on. So you have to stand at the concourse, like you're sitting there with your food and your beer waiting.
Yeah,
it could be
because
7
it took
minutes.
too long to get it. And then the
Right.
period starts quicker because they want to use the timeouts during the fucking period. It's dumb. It's all stupid. I've said this before in this podcast. We need to put up a poll of get the fans involved in this. They're selling ads on the jerseys and the boards, like you just said. They can afford to not have one extra TV timeout. They can use that between periods. No,
I like it,
Whit,
Biz.
are you on
Yeah, I
board with
agree.
my idea or not?
I am.
Thank you.
I am on board with your idea. I know you've been saying it for a while.
And to go back to the original point that you made in Adam Silver, it goes back to attention span. I don't want to be sitting in my seat after I just saw a TV timeout, a minute and a half of action, 2 minutes of action, and then right back to a timeout. That makes me feel like I'm at an NFL game. Oh, cool play. All right, let's wait another 45 seconds to the next play. Oh, quick play. Oh, let's wait another 45 seconds. Oh, we're going to a TV timeout. At game action for the NFL is brutal. I'd much rather watch on TV. Make the experience for the fan in the rinks better.
Keith, could you maybe give a comparison to the NHL version of Luka for Anthony Davis? Now, I'm not an NBA guy at all. I saw this news break. I actually was one of the people asleep. I believe it was late Saturday night. I know Luka's unreal. I people were shocked to see this. So I don't know.
Yeah,
if you could.
I think because of his age, he's 25 years old. He's the face of that franchise where they've had, Dirk was the face of their franchise as a European guy. Then they have Luka come in and kind of take over for that. I think to give it'd probably be like, I don't know, maybe trading Makar for
Doughty?
Doughty, good one.
Somebody
That's a good
wrote
one.
the perfect example. It's like
That's a really good
trading Joe Thornton in his prime.
Okay. Luka's that good.
Yeah,
Oh,
man,
yeah,
he's
he's a
fucking
stud.
reigning MVP. I think he's won one or at least one, maybe two MVPs. I think that this is an overthink by their management, thinking that the weight will catch up to him. That he's not good.
He is a little chubby.
Buddy, I went and saw him play live. He is so efficient. It was one
He
of
just
the,
slows the game down. It's like he
It was
plays
one
to
of the
his
most magical
pace,
things
yeah.
I've ever seen in my life.
Really? You were that
Him and the guy
impressed
from the
up
Denver
close?
Nuggets.
Wow.
Jokic.
Just how they're the guy from the Denver Nuggets looks taller and even actually less proportionate. He looks the guy from the Denver Nuggets. What's his name?
Jokic.
Jokic.
Yeah.
He just looks sloppy, like weird. He's got no biceps. Like his arms were brutal. The athleticism out of a guy that looked like that, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't. For the guy for Dallas, he looked a little bit more proportionate, but he definitely looks like he's probably about 18 to 20% body fat. That but for whatever reason, his steps were long. He was fluid. He never got tired. He always knew the exact move to make or the play to make, whether it was pass, whether it was to sneak underneath the guy and use the backboard on a little layup. Like it was so elegant. So for such a big 18% body fat guy, the finesse on him was just. Why are you laughing? Because I'm calling out his body fat
It sounds like you're
percentage?
talking about me.
Yeah, kinda. No, he's
If you
definitely
could
got a
shoot,
little bit
we've
more
seen
meat.
you shoot.
Yeah, I'm not talking, but you're talking like the body, the arms, no biceps, but just fluid and 18% body fat. I'm like, holy shit, this is a scouting report on me.
I think that the guy from I don't know their names. How do you say his name? The guy from Dallas.
It's Luka Doncic, and then is it Nikolai?
Doncic looks like he competes at the strongman competitions he looks like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler in his prime compared to that guy who plays for the Denver Nuggets. That guy's body
but he's way taller, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a center.
He's just a blob. But incredible.
I want to shout out as we finish up here, totally off topic, off hockey, I guess. Jack Besh, he played at TCU this year. He's a wide receiver, and he played in the Senior Bowl this past week. He scored the winning touchdown with no time remaining. He lost his brother, Tiger, in that terrorist attack in New Orleans about a month ago. And he just obviously got so emotional. He went down. He gave this speech after talking about his brother. And I guess like thinking of my brothers, like it was so emotional to watch. And like I'm like so invested where he gets drafted. I think he could be like a second, third round pick, but he was the Senior Bowl MVP as well. And like this kid, like what he went through a month, it was his older brother, Tiger. It was his idol. And like to be killed in this like horrific tragedy in New Orleans. And then this kid goes out, catches the game winner, MVP, like just an unreal story. You could just Google up, it's spelled B-E-C-H, but it's pronounced Besh, Jack Besh. Look up Jack Besh Senior Bowl MVP interview, and oh my God, dude, get the tissues ready. So congrats to him. And we're ending on a tough note, man. Two different things. Sean Simpson was a former goalie and an Ottawa Senators radio broadcaster, beloved by so many people in Ottawa and other media members. And I think it had been a real struggle for him, fighting mental illness, and so many people had been there to help him and just love this guy. And he passed away, and it's just horrible news in the hockey community. I mean, the outpouring of supports and messages on like what he meant to people out there, it was just really, really hard news for the hockey community and the hockey world. We're thinking of his family, and then also that horrific plane crash with the helicopter. There was a lot of people from the Skating Club of Boston on that plane. Young kids. It's like can't even think about it. And we want to send our regards and our prayers to those families and those communities that were affected by that. So we're ending on some really tough news. But we appreciate you guys tuning in again this week. A lot of action this past week, and we'll be back to you next week with more. And we got Four Nations coming up and the trade deadline. So it's an exciting time in this part of the season. We love you all. Love both of you guys. And thank you so much for listening, folks. So have a great week.